Nicolosi steps up into the end zone in a crowd. No good. Picked off by Woods, and it's over. Buffaloes win it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Etienne picks his way, follows his block, and Burr's still going. Etienne in a foot race, and he'll win it. Touchdown, Gators.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Quick toss to Xavier Worthy. Worthy is still up. The Baylor, the sideline. He's tough. He's fast. He's Xavier Worthy. House call.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Mevis kick on the way. It's good! There's a flag down. Missouri at the moment has walked it off.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Jefferson under pressure and sacked. Flags everywhere, and BYU is going to win this football game. Daniels on first down, going to take a shot to the end zone, and Nabors comes up with it. Malik Nabors, outstanding touchdown catch from Jaden Daniels.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in 365 Sports, the Paul Catalina solo edition on Fridays. Jack says I look lonely at the desk, but I have all of you here live on the YouTube channel and all of you watching later who I can call my friends. So, yes, I'm down 2 people, but I'm up thousands. So, anyway, big week, week four. I keep calling it week 3 between Jack and I hope it's not like onset senility that I keep moving back in time. I do feel like I'm about to be like, you don't even know what a touch tone phone is, Jack.
Yeah, I think you're just trying to go so far in the past that Florida State, is still good because you're so concerned about that Clemson game.
It's been 7 years. It's been 7 years. So I don't know, in my whole life as an FSU fan, since I went there as a student, that we've been dominated by somebody. We haven't. Maybe Florida. There was like an 0-5 run against Miami. There was maybe an 0-5, 0-6 against Florida, and now like 0-7 against. Since I've been a fan, since I've been a student, there've not been many runs like this. So yeah, that's a big one. That's one of the first games that'll be on television on Saturday, an 11 o'clock kick there in the other Death Valley, the fake Death Valley. No, it's still a really tough place to play there. They go and they touch a rock and everybody gets all fired up. It's wild. It's wild. No, look, this is such an awesome week for college football, and I could not be more excited that it starts with a game like that, and then I do get time before the end of the day to reconcile with my emotions, good or bad, by the end of it. But that's just one of many, many great games. There is a huge story, and I cannot convey how big this would be if it goes through in the NCAA in a way that maybe no one will realize. We'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to go through the schedule first. And look, you've got, of the big games this week, FSU Clemson we've already talked about. Oregon and Colorado is going to, the big noon kickoff's going to be there again. That one's at 2:30. Then next week in Los Angeles, big noon kickoff's going to be there again. They've been with Colorado the entire season, and that's Deion Sanders versus the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. That game is going to kick off at 9 o'clock local time. That is how hype Dion has made things, where you can kick off a game, a big game. This isn't the UCLA game last year that they kicked off at 9 o'clock in the morning because they knew that nobody was going to be there because of a COVID shutdown and all that. They played in the Rose Bowl in front of a group of tens of people. This is not that at all. This is a national championship contending team versus the upstart Colorado Buffaloes at 9 a.m. And they're supremely confident that, look, all the rest of us will be up, but like that people on the West Coast who have even a more vested interest in it because they're USC fans will just get up and watch it. Like, all right, top of the morning to you. Let's get our eggs and start watching football.
Yeah, that's completely insane to me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be one of the players who has to get up and play that early. Like, I would not be ready to play a football game at 9 a.m.
No.
I could definitely watch a football game at 9 a.m. Crack me a cold beer, just first thing in my morning. Yeah, that sounds great.
My favorite thing about the NFL in London is literally I get up, I take a shower, I get out of the shower, and I'm making some toast, and I'm like, oh hey, Jacksonville and Baltimore, let's do it. I don't think Amanda's too much of a fan of that because it's like, oh, now there's even more today that you're going to watch? Yeah, well, that's how it is.
Why do you think part of why I like soccer is European soccer? I can wake up on Saturday morning, and instead of watching whatever talking heads are talking about college football with takes that I don't agree with, I'm just watching soccer. Like I watch game and then game and then game.
Yeah. No, I've done that before. Like, as I've gotten more and more interested in it, it's probably your fault, but more and more interested in it. And after the world, I think the World Cup this year did a better job of highlighting where guys are once they're not playing for their countries. So if I say, ooh, I like that guy. He's from Holland. He was, let's watch this dude. He was pretty good in World Cup. So I'll watch a little bit of that. But yeah, this is like that. And we have more premiership talk and what that means for college football and the Pac-12 Mountain West thing later on in the show. Jack's got some pretty interesting thoughts on it as a soccer enthusiast.
Yeah.
A footballer.
Promotion and relegation in college football is a very interesting idea that probably won't happen.
Yeah, it might happen on the small scale, but the SEC is never going to agree to that. Yeah. Ever in a million years.
But I mean, hey, we've heard talk of a Super League breaking away, so why not talk about another soccer kind of structure?
If the Super League breaks away, honestly, that's what everybody else should do.
You're right.
That's what everybody should. So
You're absolutely right.
If you eventually come to 32 teams that are the college football Super League and everybody else is left out in the cold, just do that.
And then eventually you might see the Super League trade one of their worst teams for the best team from all the rest, and then all of a sudden you attach to the system. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, you'll be alive for that, Jack. I probably won't. We'll see.
I don't know if I want to be alive for that.
Utah and UCLA, a very interesting game. Cam Rising's coming back. Alabama and Ole Miss. This one went on our picks it's really hard to pick against Nick Saban to lose 2 home games in a row.
But it was so tempting.
I did. I think that Alabama is not themselves today. Now, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, they could find their stride, even grabbing some maybe tough or ugly wins. But right now, today, they're not themselves. And I think that that's a pretty big distinction. Let's see. That's BYU and Kansas is going to be a really good game. Neither of those teams are ranked right now. I would assume that the winner of that one might sneak into the bottom of the rankings because that's a nice win for either side. LSU and Arkansas is a great rivalry game. Oregon State and Wazoo, we've got a guest that covers Wazoo later on. Might be the best overall matchup of the weekend when it all comes down to it.
I mean, you got 2 exciting quarterbacks. You've got a lot to honestly play for already. It's the Pac-12 opener for them, but there's a lot on the line.
Honestly, most years, and it's at 6. At 6:30 is Ohio State and Notre Dame. We'll talk to Joey Kaufman in 20 minutes. He covers the Buckeyes for the Columbus Dispatch. But if you've told me I can only watch one, Oregon State and Washington State, or Ohio State and Notre Dame, which most years I'd be like, Ohio State and Notre Dame, what are you talking about? This year I'd be like, no, I'm not picking one. I'm not picking one.
I've got multi-view, right?
Yeah, I can go back and forth. No, you get one television with one channel. That would be a very hard choice.
if Sam Hartman wasn't as good as he is, I think I'd be picking Washington State, Oregon State.
I might still. And you know how much I like Sam Hartman and enjoy,
you're
his work.
An absolute Sam stan.
I am. I appreciate people who do their job efficiently. And even though it may not be spectacular, they do it efficiently. Like Chris Evans.
Please explain.
Look, I like Chris Evans, big fan of his acting work, but I read this. The reason it's in my head is I read an interview with him. He's like, look, I'm not trying to be like, I want to do what I want to do. So I'm not trying to be a leading man all the time. Like if I get a good role, I'm going to take it. But if you watch him and stuff, he's really good. But there's always like in the Avengers, like he's on screen with Robert Downey Jr. Everybody in that scene, no matter how good of an actor they are, Scarlett Johansson, excellent actor. Absolutely fantastic actor. Sam Jackson, excellent. Everybody is not Robert Downey Jr.
No.
He's here. Everyone else is a little bit below. There's excellent actors in that. And again, they're also not being given their like most challenging role ever. I get that. But that's what I want to see. Like I'm appreciative of someone who shows up and they're just good in everything that they do. Even in the bad stuff that they do, you're like, well, he wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't the problem. The script was the problem. Sam Hartman is that guy. He is going to have some games you're like, ooh, wow, that was really good. But he is so steady Eddie good and efficient when he needs to be. I appreciate that.
He's America's QB.
I don't revel in chaos. I like efficiency.
Fair enough.
I can talk forever.
It gets a little boring sometimes.
I know, but look, I'm very happy. My Starbucks by me remodeled, and it's become very efficient to go and pick it up. I talked about it with my wife for 15 minutes until she's like, "You're a dork." I said, "Yeah, but it was such a pain in the ass before. Now it's great." So that's who Sam Hartman is. He's the efficient Starbucks for me. There's a million like him, but this particular one, super efficient. I appreciate that a lot. We'll be covering Texas and Baylor tomorrow. It's a little bit different because it's a sellout. There's going to be a lot of traffic, so we are on a little bit earlier and ending a little bit earlier. So we'll be on from 4 to 5:30 as opposed from 4:30 to 6 like we normally would be. So, but yeah, we'll be on the CW tomorrow for the pregame show. Adam McDonald just asked me how much the Big Sky TV contract is worth. That is something I will never probably know off the top of my head. But Adam, I appreciate you thinking that I would know that. Thank you for the credit that I don't deserve on knowing that. Okay, the big news I teased earlier is that an NCAA committee recommended removing marijuana from list of banned drugs. Now, I know that this will probably be a polarizing topic in the chat and all around because people have polarizing opinions on marijuana. I will tell you who this will not be polarizing for, but you'll never hear a word from most of them on it. And that is the coaches. And here's why. Have you heard one NFL coach complain about it? Owner?
No.
That when they did that in the NFL?
I don't think so.
NBA?
No. I think the NBA owners possibly were openly rejoicing.
Yeah. Do you know why they're rejoicing? Because nothing they have done, suspensions, nothing they have done has curbed it. And it's something that they have to deal with no matter what. Now, does that make it right for people to do? Not necessarily, but I do think that we are open as a country for a more productive discussion on marijuana and its benefits. And just like everything, there are good with the bad. If you have a chronic problem that you're chronically using something for, whether that's marijuana or anything else, it's not good if a substance becomes part of your whole day. That's bad. It's bad if it's food. It's bad if it's drink. It's bad if it's anything. So understanding that and seeing that there are benefits that could be gleaned from it, then I do think that the NCAA is being very smart here in stop swimming against the current and figure out how to make this work for you as opposed to trying to stop something you are never going to stop. And I'm not going to go into the long, boring history lesson of why marijuana got treated the way it was when it did under Richard Nixon, because that's not what kind of show this is. But we have a 50-year history of doing this backwards in America, and I think that's starting to change. Now, everybody can feel how they want to feel about it. I'm not trying to tell you that I'm definitely right or you're definitely wrong. I'm not here to tell you that.
There's one thing for certain in all of this. It's that kids who are college age are likely to try it.
Yeah.
At least try it.
Yeah. And so that's going to be a big deal for athletes and for people, in there they're having to suspend athletes for this, for games and games and games and games all the time. So that'll be interesting to see, to take it off the plate, and they can treat it just like anything else. Kid goes out and parties too hard, isn't ready to play, gets suspended. He's suspended anyway. He's not suspended because of something that could be used for a lot of different ways. So I think that's a pretty huge story in the NCAA, and they're relenting on it. Clint Moses said NIL weed deals. That is something I don't think they will allow, because they're not allowing beer either. So no,
yeah.
And believe me, beer would love it. Keystone Light, the official beer of USC. Like, no, they would love that. Just having Caleb Williams like, hey, after a game, when I need to relax, I grab a cold Keystone Light.
Imagine the commercials we're missing out on of like the whole O-line. Like, you saw Will Howard and his O-lineman do the shotgunning celebration. Mm-hmm. Think of the NIL deals we're missing out of that actually being a commercial.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Paxton says he loves Keystone Light. Okay, there you go. Maybe they'll sponsor us now that I did this free little blurb for them.
I too enjoy drinking water.
Yeah. Maybe not now anymore. Jack just wrecked it. No, but it's a huge thing. And I will go back. I see the chat. Everybody's mad that I talked about another issue. I'm sorry that your delicate sensibilities have been fractured because I brought up an NCAA thing. I kind of thought that's what we were famous for here, but whatever.
I mean, isn't the point of it just that, regardless of where you fall on the issue, now college athletes are going to get to keep playing?
Yeah.
And colleges don't have to come down on the issue. They just let, actual legislation come down on it.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
you can be whatever way you want about that.
But again, this is going to make coaches relax, because nothing that coaches have ever been able to do. I remember Charlie Strong, when he came here and he did a speech at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame when he took the job at Texas. And he said, there will be no marijuana on the Texas football team. And it was all I could do. It was the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life. And I've seen Dave Chappelle live twice. It was the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, Charlie, are you guys going to move the University of Texas from Austin?
Oh, man.
Are you going to, is that going to, you're going to pick the whole damn thing up, the 40 acres. You're going to pick those 40 acres up, and you're going to move it to a place that is not drenched in weed smoke. Are you going to do that? Because if you are, I really would like to figure out how that's going to happen. But yeah, so that's why I'm talking about it, because it is a major issue in college athletics, and it's a big deal if they come down and change it. And you can read the article on The Athletic by Nicole Auerbach. But games this weekend are insane, and last weekend we had a good college football weekend, even though we didn't have those premier matchups, right?
Yeah, it was a weekend we didn't expect to be as good as it was, which is a great weekend.
But it should kind of show you where parity is in college football, where you can have those kind of weekends and go, you know what? This is not how it used to be. Because it's not how it used to be. You get a couple of the right transfers, and you can either take somebody under the wire, or those can flip a game.
Yeah.
That you haven't won in 10 years. And things change so fast in college football right now, roster-wise, that week to week it's going to be great. Deion Sanders is proving it every single week that, look, I can take a team that is the least interesting Power 5 team in the country. Colorado went from being the least interesting Power 5 team in the country to being the most talked about, too much, and I'm guilty of this too, but talked about team in maybe all of sports in less than a year. There has never been a time in college sports where that could happen. You could not, like, no matter what the program was. Nick Saban didn't make Alabama good in a year. His first year at Alabama, there were a ton of growing pains. Now, he rapidly changed things, but the first year at Alabama was not great. But that's because they weren't great. And look, Deion might wind up going 6-6 or 7-5 when it's all said and done, because the team may not be completely up to snuff. But guess what? It's going to be a damn interesting along the way. There are tons of teams that have turned around a lot quicker now. And so to look at a weekend and go, oh, that's going to be bad, I don't think we can do that anymore. I don't think we can do that.
No, I mean, it's going to be a tough habit to get over.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right, because transfer portal and NIL, that combination, I know that NIL can be top heavy, but just the nature of all the movement it can give to players in the sport, I don't think you're able to fully understand how good or bad a roster is until like 3-4 weeks into the season. And so those bad slates that you get early in the season, it's how often are they actually going to be that bad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like
that's exactly what you're saying, but
yeah, exactly. Like now, I think you can't really judge. You have to look at everything as it stands. Look, yeah, there's still going to be bad games, but there's going to be. I can promise you this: there's one of these games that we're all excited about this weekend that's going to wind up being kind of lame. Yeah. One team's going to beat the other one really badly into submission, and the third quarter and fourth quarter of that game will just be, the announcers talking about, well, didn't expect this.
Oregon and Colorado.
Oregon and Colorado to me is going to be really interesting because, Colorado has not, they are opportunistic on defense, but they're not shutting anybody down. So how are they going to make those opportunities against the best quarterback they've played so far?
Yeah.
And then they have to turn around and do that all again next week against a guy who's better.
Paul, I got to ask, what's your what's your slate for the day? What's your noon kickoff, your 2:30, your 6?
Noon is FSU and Clemson. And anything else that happens during that time, I will only register like this. Oh, yeah, good. That'll be one of those things that somebody will ask me later on, did you see the so-and-so and so-and-so? And I'm like, no. Oh, that's cool. I'll go back and watch it later. But I had real problems. 2:30 is definitely Oregon and Colorado.
Because you've got 3 great games to pick from there.
Yeah. 2:30 is definitely Oregon and Colorado if I had to make that choice of that, because I am so intrigued by what happens.
Cam Rising's back at Utah, and they're playing UCLA, but then you also have Ole Miss and Bama.
Yeah, see, I watched Bama play a good chunk of that USF game last week, and right now I don't consider them must-see TV anymore. So I'm going to go with Oregon and Colorado to kind of ride that wave while it's still worth riding. And then my 6 o'clock game is...
Make that choice that we were talking about earlier.
Oh, man, I'm going to go Oregon State and Washington State, the Pac-2 championship.
Not to mention, there's another what could be solid game in there. Iowa looks like they have a better offense
Iowa
this
and
year.
Penn State, yeah,
and I believe that's the whiteout, right?
Yeah.
So you've got some great options in those 2 later windows to pick from.
Yes, I do know.
You could also watch Baylor get their ass kicked by Texas.
Yeah, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. Our staff
I say that as a Baylor alum
is very divided on that. If you read our column, the staff picks column today.
Over on SicEm365.com.
The best news for me is that Garrett went so much further to the rage side than I did.
Yeah, 63-9.
Yeah, I was 52-10. I honestly don't know. I'll talk to Grayson and Sam about this in the show later. I just don't see it.
I don't either.
Tell me what I'm not seeing.
I'm hoping for 38-17.
Look, and look, there are in the Matt Rule in that 2017 year, they took Baker Mayfield down to the wire. Maybe this team has that in them, but I have not seen that yet. I have not, and maybe this is the game that you see it. So I'd been hoping against hope that would be a better game, that this would be a 2-1 Baylor team against a 2-1 or 3-0 Texas team when it came in. That would make the most sense. But now you're looking at a 1-2 Baylor team that, even in their one win, was listless against their FCS opponent. I don't know. There's something missing from Baylor that is not just a talent thing. Talent, I think, is developing and an issue, but there's something there that's not just talent.
Yeah.
it's something more. And so
there are better choices to cap off your day.
Exactly. So
like at least three better choices.
But I can tell you, Jack, last Saturday, Garrett and I had all four of these TVs going on games. And when I get back from the stadium on Saturday at halftime to get ready for the postgame show, that is what will be here again.
I'm pretty sure Garrett's just staying here.
Yeah.
So he'll have it all going.
Yeah. It's gonna be very chaotic over there tomorrow. So anyway, when we come back, Joey Kaufman, the Columbus Dispatch, discusses one of those big games. Columbus versus South Bend, Ohio State and Notre Dame. This is 365 Sports.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
During Jeep Adventure Days, save big on 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee Limited with values up to $5,500. Or 10% off MSRP on new Jeep Gladiators on all trim levels. Or 10% off MSRP on a new Jeep Compass at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. The Smoke's off doing high school football today, so I am flying solo, as is my mission on Fridays now. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch, joins me now. He is en route to South Bend, Indiana for Ohio State and Notre Dame tomorrow. And Joey, this game was good for a stretch or close for a stretch last year. Ohio State had so much more talent, and that was probably the roughest game they played all year. What is changed in your estimation, not just the quarterbacks between these two teams this year, that may make this thing go in a different fashion than it did a year ago?
Well, I think Notre Dame is a lot different than a year ago. Obviously, the impact of Sam Hartman, the transfer quarterback from Wake Forest, and they've become a lot more explosive on offense. They lead the country in plays of 40 yards or more. They have 11 this year, which is already twice as many as they had a year ago, which is a whole new element that they have, is they're able to create those big plays. And last year when they played Ohio State, what Notre Dame wanted to do was shorten the game and milk clock and really grind out yards. This is a game where I think they can go maybe a little more toe-to-toe with them in the big plays and take advantage of maybe Ohio State's vulnerability, at least what was their vulnerability last year in giving up those explosive plays.
Do you think that the defensive front at Ohio State, which has been their Achilles heel, they have, especially, that's why they've lost to Michigan the last couple of years, because that matchup is just so off kilter as where it had been in the past. Notre Dame with Audric Estime is going to try to run right at them.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, an interesting test for that front. They have a lot of returning guys up front, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, the defensive end, Mike Hall and Ty Hamilton, Tyleek Williams. And the inside, all those guys have been around for a while, and they're upperclassmen now. And this is the year they're supposed to really take that next step. But they haven't played a team that's really going to try to grind out yards. Indiana was running the option. Youngstown State was an FCS team. And then they played Western Kentucky, which was an air raid team, was to throw the ball around a lot. So the teeth of Ohio State's defense, the front, hasn't really been tested, and this is going to be a big one to see what they're made of.
What's your early returns on Kyle McCord?
I think he's showed a lot of promise. He was in his first full start last week, where he didn't rotate in the first half. He threw 3 touchdowns to 4 incompletions. I think he's a pretty good arm, throws a good ball. I mean, he was a top 50 recruit coming out of high school, a 5-star who had 2 years in Ryan Day's system. So I think the floor is pretty high for him and what he's going to be able to provide for Ohio State in terms of facilitating their offense, getting the ball to the playmakers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Buka, he's decisive with the ball. The question is whether he's going to have that special trait that C.J. Stroud had, as far as maybe hitting on some really deep throws. But I mean, I think he's been promising for them early on. This is obviously going to be a pretty big weekend for him, though, because he's making his 5th start of his college career, going up against the quarterback in Hartman at Notre Dame, who's making 50th. So just a little bit of a gap in experience there.
All right, so Lou Holtz today, and I don't know if you've seen this, you've been on the road, but he predicted that Notre Dame, I mean, this is very homer pick by Lou Holtz, obviously.
Yeah.
All that. But what he said about Ryan Day, I'm curious, what is the opinion of people in Columbus about, however, he's lost to Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Michigan twice, and everybody beats him because they're more physical than Ohio State. Is that a fair assessment of Ryan Day, especially when it comes to Ohio State fans?
I don't think it's unfair at all. I think there's a big segment of the fan base, and certainly an outspoken one at the very least, that is disappointed in the way things have trended at Ohio State. 2 losses in a row to Michigan. The loss, even though they played well against Georgia last year in the playoff game, they ultimately didn't win the game. So in recent seasons, they haven't had that big, flashy win that I think makes people feel good about themselves. On the other hand, I think there are a lot of people who recognize he's lost a total of 6 games, and now he's in his 5th year. So he doesn't lose a whole lot, but I think people want that extra level. And really a lot of it goes back to the Michigan rivalry. There's a generation of Ohio State fans that just become unaccustomed to watching them lose to Michigan. Urban Meyer was 7-0 in the rivalry. Jim Tressel only lost once to Michigan. And that, I think, has left people with sort of an unfamiliar feeling of what it's actually like to sort of have a little bit of a 10-year war, which you have to go back to the Woody and Bo days.
Yeah, I know that he's under fire to whatever extent that really is for a guy who's been as wildly successful in his tenure as he has there outside of those Michigan losses, really. And I mean, almost every other college in the country would hire him in a second if they let him go. Is there any kind of concern that if they did that they would be cutting off their nose to spite their face and instead of letting him find his sea legs, especially going into a time when we're about to have a 12-team playoff?
I think they're as loud as the certain segment of the Ohio State fan base can be, and is maybe frustrated with Ryan Day as they can be. I think the thing that's probably in his favor is his boss, Gene Smith, likes him and has extended his contract a year ago. He got a pay bump for this year. So I think institutionally, Ohio State likes what he's done so far. And I think a big reason why is their floor is so high. They win 10, 11 games every year. And even if he does have a Michigan problem, and remember, he's still only 1-2 in the rivalry, and he'd be 2-2 if they had played the game in 2020. They're really only 1 or 2 games away here most years from winning the top prize in college football. And I think that ultimately is in his favor. And I think you can play the what if game if you want, but still they were so close in the last couple of years to actually winning the whole thing. If Marvin Harrison doesn't get knocked out in the fourth quarter against Georgia, maybe they win that game. Maybe if 1 or 2 plays go their way, they win the game. So I think that's always the risk if you move on from somebody like that, or I think part of the value that he brings you is he puts you in the conversation every year. And you're right about the 12-team playoff. When that comes in, even if you still lose to Michigan, you're going to get another bite at the apple, either in a Big Ten championship game, which could provide a rematch, or in the expanded playoff field.
Brian Hartline is, maybe number 1 assistant sought after in the country now, the way he's recruited, the way that he's put that. I mean, I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out in that, but he has talked about, especially in the Big Ten circles, very, very warmly, and he is doing some amazing things there, especially at the wide receivers he's getting to come and play for them. How long do they figure they can hold on to him, especially now that a job like Michigan State is open and has a 10-week lead on anybody else who may even try to hire him?
I think they've done everything that they can to this point to try to retain him and keep him happy. They gave him a big pay raise this offseason with his promotion to offensive coordinator, where he's making $1.6 million a year. They're bringing him along and grooming him as the next play caller if down the road they decides to delegate more of those responsibilities. And this is his alma mater too, and I think he's going to be selective when he does want to leave, because this is really the only coaching job he's ever had. He came to Ohio State in 2017 as a quality control coach for Remeyer pretty soon after his playing career in the NFL ended. So I don't see him really leaving unless the circumstances are really right. And I think he's compensated so well, and I think likes where he's at, that I don't think you go to a spot you're not going to be comfortable in.
What do you think, Michigan? You cover the Big Ten. What does Michigan State do about that job?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a tougher job moving forward. Just with the way the Big Ten is going to be restructured, with USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon coming in. I think before you could say maybe Michigan State's the 4th, 5th best job in the conference, and now that's going to change. They probably need to get back to what made them successful in the past with Mark D'Antonio. And they tried to do it when they hired Luke Fickell, was getting those overlooked kids from Ohio who maybe didn't get the Ohio State offer but are still plenty good, at just having them come up one state over. And that might be the way forward for them, rather than Mel Tucker, who was all about the transfer portal. And that didn't, even before his recent downfall, was not going the way you want it. So maybe you look at somebody like Mark Stoops, if you could convince him from Kentucky. But that type of coach with that type of profile, where you're recruiting the overlooked Ohio kid to Michigan State, I think would be probably the formula that you want.
If Ohio State loses this game tomorrow, does that derail any of their goals in your mind?
I don't think so. I think it reduces your margin for error, because if they lose tomorrow night, they basically need to run the table and beat Michigan and beat Penn State. And those are 2 other top 5, top 10 teams they have on your schedule, plus the Big Ten championship game. So they dealt with the loss last year in the regular season and still made the playoff, and it's not going to wipe away their goals. but it's certainly going to make, I think, it harder because then you are afforded you get no more mulligans really. No two-loss teams ever made the playoffs. So it's I guess for all intents and purposes, a double elimination regular season.
Okay, Joey, true or false? USC joined the Big Ten because they missed you covering them.
I don't think I can compete with the payday that they're going to get by joining the
I mean, that's all gravy. And again, based on this last week, it appears they don't like anybody covering them. So, yeah. but yeah. Anyway, Joey, thanks for hopping on. Columbus Dispatch, Joey Kaufman, one of the best in the biz. He's covered USC, covers Ohio State now. Have fun at the game. Travel safe, buddy.
Hey, always good to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Always love having Joey on. Yeah, used to cover USC and then moved to Columbus, Ohio. I'm wondering, like, at their pinnacle, like, what is a more hectic beat
than USC?
No, one of those two others. Which is the one that takes up your time, like, you know, a little bit more? Would it be Ohio State because that is what's cared about more in Columbus, or would it be USC, seeing as they're super popular now, but in LA, they're like sixth fiddle?
I feel like it's, at least from the writer's perspective, it's got to be USC, just because you're still struggling for views and clicks. That, and I feel like simply the traffic to get where you need to go to cover them is that much more annoying, that much more hectic.
Look, Columbus
maybe
is a massive city, but it's not Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could not imagine.
So if they're both at their peaks, if they're both competing for national championships, I think it's more hectic to cover USC.
Yeah. The most stressed out I've ever been driving was Santa Monica to Burbank a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was 1:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Gee.
It wasn't like any kind of, maybe 2:00, but, I had a great drive. Like, the drive there to Santa Monica from Oxnard, I went down Highway 1, which is a beautiful, lovely drive. Mountains on one side, the Pacific on the other. Only hit traffic when you get to the little areas where there's, shops and stuff. And then you kind of go on through and get to Santa Monica Pier, weirdest place I've ever been, by a long shot. And then you have to leave and you put in, I felt like when I put it in my phone, like Santa Monica to Burbank, the Siri went, "Why? What are you doing? You're crazy. Stay here."
Yeah, maybe you should have listened.
You might as well just drive back to Texas. That's what you're going to feel like when you look at, how long's the trip? Oh, it's 31 miles. Okay, great. That should take about 30 to 40 minutes. No, that's not how it works. Anyway, when we come back, Grayson Grundhoefer, SicEm365.com. Baylor may be getting a big commitment on Monday. We'll talk about that. Plus, how does Baylor drum up some emotion for this Texas game? This is 365 Sports.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhoefer of SicEm365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Welcome in, Grayson Grundhoefer, SicEm365.com recruiting analyst. And Grayson, we do have a potential commitment to talk about, but let's talk about this game tomorrow. You and I clearly have different views on it. Now, I know that we both picked Texas to win. I picked them to win a lot bigger than you did. Do you think that the sellout student crowd, which I'm going to say that because I do think that if people are thinking it's going to be a big green and gold wave in there, given that Texas is good again, the T-shirt fans are back at UT, and there's going to be a lot of them there. But the sellout student crowd buoys the Bears' emotions enough to get them to show some fire for the first time this year.
Well, you know, I think, Paul, this is where I think there's a lot of differing opinions, because I do think that Baylor showed a lot of fire in the Utah game. Like, I really do. I think it was a tough situation. You know, you're going in with a backup quarterback who's starting for the first time. And that defense played really well. I felt like Sawyer Robertson played really well until he got the ankle injury, and then just everything went off the rails late in the fourth quarter there. But in general, I think Baylor got up for that game. So I do think there's a blueprint for Baylor to get up for this Texas game. I think there's kind of prior history that would point you into saying, okay, I think if there's one game on this schedule that I think we can pretty much bank on Baylor actually playing really, really hard and having a lot of energy, having a fan base that has a lot of energy, I do think it's this Texas game. And so I think that's a big part of the reason why I do think that Baylor is going to be competitive in this game. I also think, you know, for as good as I believe Texas is, I do think there are some things that give me a little bit of pause, such as the inconsistent play of Quinn Ewers. And I know everyone's just going to look at the Alabama game and they're going to immediately say, wow, like this guy is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. This guy is unreal. Like, look at the throws he's making. And that's great. But if you go look at the Rice game and the Wyoming game, there are inconsistencies there. And because of those inconsistencies, it caused Texas to have moments where they weren't playing up to par. And I mean, in the Wyoming game, it took them 3 quarters before they started really doing anything offensively. So I do think there are reasons to think Baylor can make this game competitive. I think a big part of it is going to be creating pressure on Quinn Ewers and just making him inaccurate, which for the most part during his career, he's been right around a 60% completion percentage guy, which is really not that great.
No, and look, the Alabama game was the first time that he's thrown them to a win in his career. And if he can do that more often, they wound up not needing him to last week against Wyoming. But there was a point where you thought like maybe he's going to have to. Now, granted, the big play did come on a short pass, but it was Xavier Worthy making that happen. Where are the matchups, though, in that front, like getting that pressure, do you think that Baylor can win on?
Yeah, if you're going to point to anyone, it's going to be TJ Franklin. And for, as much as we've talked about kind of the defensive line having struggled, which they absolutely have, they have not been good enough against the run. And so I do think if they get Jarrell Boykins back this week, which he's the JUCO nose tackle who they brought in to replace Apu Aikika, and he was supposed to have a huge role this year, but he got hurt in the green and gold game and hasn't played this season. I think there's a chance that he comes back and actually plays quite a few snaps. I know he's been practicing in recent weeks, so I could see him getting out there and honestly making a huge difference. I mean, Baylor's been playing with guys who are right around 300 pounds and 275 pounds in Cooper Lance and Trevin Maya at nose tackle. Now you bring in Jarrell Boykins, who's 330 pounds. There's just a huge difference there as far as his sheer size, but also adding depth. You can rotate guys in and out. But specifically matchups-wise, besides him, I think he makes everyone's jobs easier. But TJ Franklin as a pass rusher, he was amazing this spring and fall camp. It's carried over some this season. I think we've seen flashes of it. He's missed a couple tackles that would have been sacks, but I think in this game, he's going to have to make those plays. When he gets an opportunity to bring Quinn Ewers down, he's got to take advantage of it. And then the other two guys that I'm really looking at in this one are Byron Bonds and Garmin Randolph. We've seen flashes from Bonds this season, the transfer from Utah State. We've seen the explosiveness. He's gotten to the quarterback some. I think he could bring something to the table this week. And then Garmin Randolph, who got the high ankle sprain against Texas State, he's getting himself back to full health. And I think this week he should be much closer to that. And so we'll get to see kind of that duo at the jack position potentially being on the field together and creating some havoc in the backfield.
Who has to show out for them to win an offense? And do they try and copy Wyoming's game plan a little bit last week?
So to me, this is all about, can Baylor run the ball at all? And by that, I mean, if they run the ball as well as they did against Utah for the most part, I think they definitely have a chance to win this game. I mean, it became inconsistent in the fourth quarter because you lost the ability to run Sawyer Robertson. Dominic Richardson got banged up as well. And because of that, they could not run it late in that game. They have to be able to run it some. And if they're able to do that, I think the two guys to really watch out for are Drake Dabney and Ketron Jackson. I think those two guys are the two guys that have to win one-on-one matchups and have to make life easier for Sawyer Robertson, who at this point during his career at Baylor has just been inconsistent with his passes. He's got to be able to be on target, make the throws when they're there, and just don't try to do too much. Late in that Utah game, just tried to do a little bit too much. And maybe in this one, if he can shore things up, if guys can give him easier throws, I do think there will be opportunities for those two guys specifically to win some one-on-one battles. And they're going to have to, because I do think Texas is going to come out and try to play some man coverage, try to heat up the quarterback a little bit. And that's going to mean you're going to have one-on-one opportunities on the outside.
All right. On Monday, a commit coming. Who is it? Is it going to be Baylor, and who is their competition for it?
Right. So it's 4-star safety Josh Lair out of Fort Bend Marshall. This is the guy who's been a Baylor priority target for a long time, ever since they offered back in February. And he's one who took his official visit to Baylor at the beginning of June. That was Baylor's first official visit weekend. They got him on campus and have just been consistent with him throughout the process. Going into this weekend, he's deciding between Baylor, Texas, and Washington. He's taking his official visit to Washington this weekend. So I know on the Huskies side of things, they're probably feeling really good about getting that last official visit with his decision coming on Monday. I think on the other side of things, Baylor's built a great relationship, and I do think Baylor is currently the leader going into this official visit weekend. But again, there's optimism, I think, on both sides. I think Josh likes both schools quite a bit. And then Texas as well is kind of a wild card. But I do think as we're getting closer and closer to this date, I do think it's going to be between Washington and Baylor. And again, Baylor the lead going into the weekend, but they're going to have to hold on to it as he's taking an official visit to Seattle this weekend.
Grayson, win or lose this week, and then they've got to go to Orlando next week. Jack and I will be there, by the way. So come out and see us if you're in Orlando on Friday. We'll be at Bounce House Social. But win or lose next week as they head into Orlando, how do you feel about them? Just say they're 1-3 heading through the rest of the Big 12 schedule. Seeing how everything else has fallen, would you feel, depending on how this game goes, optimistic, pessimistic, or about the same?
I think you got to be about the same. And the only reason I say that is because Texas is the best team that they're going to play all year. And so, I mean, if you're just going to judge it based on, they lost this game, now they're 1-3, now there's no way they're going to be good the rest of the year. I think that that's a little bit foolish when you look around the rest of the conference and see how kind of inconsistent up and down a lot of teams have been in the early going. I do think there's opportunities for Baylor to play a lot better. I think getting Blake Shapen back would obviously be very helpful. I think there's a chance that they're playing a UCF team next weekend, most likely without John Rice Plumlee. So once again, if you get Shapen back, I think they could go in there and potentially win that game. But the rest of the schedule is tough. I mean, it's going to be a battle to make a bowl game if they do lose this game because, 1-3 with a gauntlet of a schedule, it feels like coming up with a bunch of teams that are right around the same level as you're going to have to flip some of those games. So I would say regardless of the result this weekend, if they were to lose, I would say I'm right around the same. Now, if they win this game, that's a completely different conversation. If they're able to come out here and win this game with a backup quarterback, that completely flips everything in my eyes because you look at the rest of their schedule and you go, hey, they beat Texas with Sawyer Robertson at quarterback. They get Blake Shapen back. And you got to be feeling like, hey, they can win any game on this schedule going forward. So I think optimistic if they win and then about the same if they lose, as long as it's not a complete blowout.
Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com. Grayson, enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. That's Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com. He picked Texas in a close game, right, Jack?
I believe, yes.
30-24?
Something like that.
Yes, he's not as washed in hopeless negativism as I am. But
he's also a Baylor grad.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to be wrong about anything.
I would be happy to be wrong.
Yeah. I'm not Skip or Stephen A., as a sports pundit where I have to be right about everything. I have opinions. Games happen and they change. That's the thing that I think is different about there are two kinds of people in the kind of media business now. Those like me, which seemingly are few and far, and Craig and Smokey, care, wrong, so whatever, wrong. Wrong about a lot of things,
I think there are more of us like that.
There's probably
I like
more.
To think I'm like that.
There's more of us, but we're not out there yelling at people about why we're right or wrong. So, I'm happy to be wrong about a prediction. I don't care if somebody has to rub it in my face. I'm that's sports, man.
That's half the fun of sports is upsets and
being wrong. Yeah. I love it when I'm like, they're wrong about those guys. Good for them, Yeah, absolutely.
Part of why I'm so excited for the expanded playoff is because I'm hoping that there are going to be teams that just prove people wrong every year.
Well, yeah, and look, you're adding opportunities for big teams to lose, which is why there are elitists that are scared of it.
Yep.
Because that's just math. If there's more opportunities for them to lose, they will lose more often. It still might not be all that much, but it will be more often. Which is, look, the NFL plays 17 games and nobody freaks out if somebody's 1-2 because you're like, well, you have 14 games left. I'll figure it out. That's what the 12-team playoff is going to help with college football, where you lose one game and you're not like, well, my dreams are shot. I lost a game by a point against a really good team, and now I won't be any better than fifth. Why do I even do this? But No. When we come back, old friend Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman, gives us the Texas perspective on this and why could this Texas team be different than all the others who have gotten people excited. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. An old friend of ours here at the show, and a guy I love running into every chance I get to, Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman. And Cedric, you have covered the Longhorns for a long time, and there have been many kind of in the last, 14 years, little upstarts of like, oh, this is good, this is great. I don't want to say the buzz phrase, but all those have happened. What makes this particular group of Longhorns different in that they can soldier through the hype a little bit better?
There's a catchphrase, we're back.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard that, Paul?
Yeah.
I mean, too many to count. Joe Tessitore famously said it when they beat Notre Dame and Charlie Strong's second or third year. They weren't back. Sam Ehlinger said it after they beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and that was the last time Georgia had lost a bowl game. So that was kind of the end of Georgia losing. But I think that 3 years into the Sarkisian era that He's put his stamp on the program recruiting wise. Good classes, top 5-10 classes. He's getting the buy-in that he needed last season. They took a real large step forward, particularly in the locker room with the senior leadership. And I think that has kind of carried over to this season. They experienced a little bit of success last season. Probably should have won more than 8 games, blew a couple of second-half leads. And now they're starting to feel the taste that fine nectar of being a top 5, number 3 in the country type team. And I think, Paul, once you start to realize that maybe you are as good as you think you can be, and going to Alabama and winning by double digits showed the nation that Texas is capable of playing with the big dogs, I think that's intoxicating for a team and addictive, and they want to feed off of that. So it'll be interesting to see how they can live with the mantle of being the hunted instead of the hunter.
Steve Sarkisian is, at least in my observation, and I don't see him every day, but handling what is one of the more challenging head coaching jobs in the country a lot better than his 2 previous predecessors, in that I think Charlie Strong didn't make a fair assessment of who Texas was when he got there. And then Tom Herman hears literally everything everyone says about him, whether it matters or not, and treats it equally. And I think that stressed him out, as where Steve Sarkisian seems that he's got more a water off a duck's back quality to him. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're 150% correct. It seems to roll off of him. Now, we have moments when he gets after us in press conferences, and I've told him, during a press conference, I like feisty Sarkisian. I like it when he gets feisty with us. Mm-hmm. That's good copy. I mean, we'll take that. That's good sound bites. We'll take that. Charlie didn't understand the magnitude of dealing with the big money donors and the hangers-on that proliferate this program, and I don't think he ever had a great relationship with the Texas high school football coaches, which was a huge mistake on his part. Tom Herman was better in recruiting the state, having worked in Houston, so he knew these streets. He knew these Big 12 streets, and so the most fertile recruiting area in the state of Texas is Houston area. So Tom was right smack dab in the middle of that. So he used those inroads to have 4 winning seasons, but some off the field stuff led to his ouster. I think Steve understands the importance of Texas recruiting. He understands that he's got to balance being the football coach with dealing with those people who just can't help but try to have their fingers on the program. And he keeps media at a arm's distance. He doesn't get too close to us. I don't know that any of us have a real relationship with him. And it's definitely a business arrangement, and it's seeming to work in his favor. This is the 10th team he's coached, Paul, and only one other team has started 3-0, and that was the 2013 Washington team that he eventually left for the USC job.
Well, I saw him at the end of that year. Cedric, you remember they played Baylor in the Alamo Bowl in the No Defense Classic, as I like to call it. It was an absolute shootout. And Softy Mahler, who works for the flagship station in Seattle that they're on, asked him about firing his defensive coordinator after that game. And I'll never forget, as long as they left, he's like, real classy, Softy, real classy. Then didn't answer the question. He was mad about it. But that game was ridiculous, and it needed to be asked. But, yeah, I've seen some of that fire from him. Now, granted, it's a decade ago, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Now, did he fire him right after the game and Softy asked him, or did he ask him about the potential to fire him?
The potential to fire him. You know, like, do you have to make a change? Yeah.
You have to ask. That's a question you have to ask. Mm-hmm. Because eventually, I guess those problems take care of themselves. But we'd be remiss if we didn't ask a coach that just gave up. What was it, 57? What did they give up in that game?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, you'd be remiss if you didn't ask. I mean, you scored enough to win the game, but you just couldn't stop them. What about your DC moving forward? And after bowl games, Paul, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We spring ahead to what's happening next. Will this guy be back? That's a legitimate question.
Yeah. But so I know he can get, I mean, I guess every coach can get rabbit ears, maybe not Lincoln Riley rabbit ears or Tom Herman rabbit ears, but they can. But we got to talk to him last year at Big 12 Media Days, and there was just a different, and granted, he's been through a lot in the last decade of his life that maybe allows him to compartmentalize things maybe a little bit better than certain coaches can.
Yeah, 49 years of age, he's lived longer years than that. Mm-hmm. He's had some issues off the field. He's overcome those issues. He's gotten a second chance at a blue blood college football institution, and a lot of people don't get a second chance. A lot of people, Paul, don't get a first chance because he's coached at USC and Texas. I mean, those are traditional football factories, and so he's made the most of this. He's overcome some early struggles. Losing to Kansas at home, never good. Gave up 57 in that one, I might add, and so he's kind of come from to the other side of that, and he's got a great opportunity here. The schedule is not foreboding. The teams that Kansas State is a big threat. You get Kansas State at home, you get OU on a neutral field, but what they have to avoid. Starting this weekend, is they have to avoid losing those games that they have no business losing. And that's been the story of Texas football for the last several years. Can they live up to that ranking and somehow make it to the Big 12 title game, win the Big 12 title, and play in the CFP? That's the big question. Can they win the games they're supposed to win?
What is different to you about Quinn Ewers last year to this year? What has he learned and changed?
He changed his body. Mm-hmm. He's much leaner. He was playing at 218 last year. He's playing at 195 now, which I think is really skinny. And you wonder about durability. He divorced Chick-fil-A, and he's eating better, more nutrition. I think he's kind of figured out that on the rate that he was on last season, that he was not going to be an NFL quarterback. And that's still to be determined. If he's going, he's been projected like a number 8 overall pick next spring. I'll believe it when I see it. Now, he's taking on more of a leadership role. He's a laid back guy, Paul, who doesn't really, not one of those guys who is a natural leader of men, but he understands that he needs to be because of the position he plays. After they won in Alabama, he called a Tuesday players only meeting. He called that meeting. And he urges teammates, do not get complacent. The job isn't done. That's a big win. Let's put it in the review. That's leadership. That's what he's been doing. So still a notoriously slow starter. He's bookended really slow starts against Rice and against Wyoming in between the electric performance against Alabama. So they're going to run into a team that might be able to hit them in the mouth. And if that coincides with a slow Quinn Ewers start, they could be in some trouble. So they're going to have to figure out how to start better. Last year, they started well and couldn't finish. They blew several double-digit leads. This year, they're finishing strong. In the last 2 fourth quarters, Paul, 42 points scored, including 21 in the fourth quarter of Brian Denny in Tuscaloosa. That just doesn't happen.
No, and they seem, not just Quinn Ewers, but to me, mature around the field. I know Xavier Worthy, has had problems with drops. He had the electric play last week that woke them up right at the start of that fourth quarter. It's all of a sudden they're like, okay, here we go. But he also had a little bit of petulance would be the wrong word, but maybe immaturity or you need to grow up a little bit more. It seems like they do have more of those guys on the team who realize that a game like Alabama is great, but it doesn't mean you've done anything yet because it just meant you're 2-0.
Yeah, and they seem to be handling success a lot better. And I think Xavier Worthy is a good example of it. Just a tremendous athlete. You saw him blow up against OU last year, having some similar success this year. Had those drops in the Alamo Bowl, and then we find out months later, Sarkisian goes, he's playing with a broken hand while you tell us. I was trying to protect the player. So much for transparency on that end, but I get it. But so he's grown up. The Xavier Worthy we're speaking with nowadays has a comfort about him. He knows he's a good player. He knows he has a future in the pros if things continue to progress this way. They just have guys who have been through the wars. Their juniors and seniors lost to Kansas. It was a 1-8 Kansas. It wasn't this Jalen Daniels bunch that's able to bite somebody on any given Saturday. So they've been in those embarrassing situations. They've come through it. But now they're the ones landing the punches instead of taking them. Sarkisian is fearless. Before the Alabama game, he goes, "We're going in there throwing haymakers. We're not throwing jabs." And he said it on the ESPN game day in front of millions of people. And that's been a message to his team. We're not afraid of anybody. And that's kind of trickled down through the locker room. And they kind of understand that there's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen, Paul. There's a chance that they can have a very special season. But they have to have that buy-in. That leadership's got to be on point. And most importantly, they have to deliver on Saturday.
Well, and that does. And one of those games you talked about, tomorrow, they really shouldn't have any business losing to a Baylor team that's not found itself yet. And so you don't want to be the team that lets them find themselves, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be on that end. And I know Randy's said all week that people keep coming up to him. If there's one game we want you to win, it's that one. They'd love nothing better than to kick Texas in the bud and send them into the SEC, wondering what could have been in 2023. There's no way even if Baylor beats Texas and the Longhorns run the table, there's no way they'll be able to explain away why they lost to Baylor to the CFP committee. You're not getting a top four, even if you run the table, if you lose to Baylor. Now, if you lose to Oklahoma and then run the table after that and win the Big 12, okay, because Oklahoma's going to be ranked at the end of the year. So they know going in that this is not just one win that they need to put, on their belt. It's got to be a win that's going to keep their dreams alive that are way bigger right now than Big 12. Now, they won't tell you that. They'll go, "Oh, yeah, we want to be 1-0 after this week." That's coach speak. That's coach speak. We're in the media. We can look big picture. We can talk about this kind of stuff, Paul. They need to win this game, and they need to beat OU, and they need to beat Kansas. And if they're sitting at 6-0, going up against K-State and Houston, then they have their legitimate threat to represent the Big 12 in the CFP, but not until then. So it all starts tomorrow. If they win tomorrow, all of their goals are still ahead of them. Baylor's going to come out and try to give them. They're going to come swinging for the fences in the first quarter. I think Aranda's going to be more aggressive in his play calling. And I think College is going to send the house at Quinn Ewers and see what he can do.
They're going to have to, Cedric. They've got to find some fire, which they have not found in the early part of the season. And maybe seeing the burnt orange roll into the stadium is going to do that, because so far, man, it's been tough sledding for the Bears.
Well, I didn't even know Long Island had a football team. I had no idea. When you hear Long Island, I think Julius Irving, Jim Brown, Sue Bird. Those are the people I think about. I don't think about them actually having a college football team. And, and I know that Sawyer finished up great against them, but 10 of 22 for $133. Not going to cut it against the Longhorns. He's going to have a career game. Reed's going to have to get loose. And they have some athletes on the outside, but this will easily be the best team that Baylor will face this year.
Yes, absolutely. Cedric, always great to talk to you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Look forward to seeing you, brother.
All right. Talk to you soon, Cedric. This is always a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman. My gosh, I've learned a lot from him. He's been a veteran sports writer for a long time. Great dude. Sometimes I'd see him twice a week if he was covering a game, like if Texas was off and he'd come and cover a Baylor game, and then I'd see him. We'd cover the Cowboys at the same time. So great guy. Love talking to Cedric. And you heard it. Like, he's, Jack, very practical about the Longhorns.
Yeah.
Very practical about them. But look, this is legit. Like, this is prove it weekend, right? Where you're staring at the precipice of what you could be if you don't mess up. Texas, and especially within the top five, there's two teams, Florida State and Texas, that really have to show that they are in fact for real. And not that Baylor normally a 1-2 team against a 3-0 team that's done what Texas has done does not create this much confusion. But what Texas has done is lose these exact games over this stretch where they'll haul off and beat Oklahoma by 17, or they'll go and beat the next best team in the Big 12, but they'll lose to Baylor and Kansas, and then you're like, well, what's going on? And then the season kind of gets away from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they win the big ones and not the medium ones.
It's about not playing down to the level of your opponents, about being ready no matter who you have to see that week and taking care of your business.
Yeah.
And they don't have to get out of here with more than a 1-point win.
No.
They just got to get out of here with a win.
Yeah.
But I think they'd be very unhappy with themselves if they didn't have a significant margin.
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on. We'll keep it here for just a second because we got a few minutes before our.
Yeah, we got some time before Josh.
Jack, speaking of Oklahoma and Texas, Steve Berkowitz, USA Today, wrote this. Here is some realignment money news on that. So, based on recent questions from the USA Today Network and Freedom of Information requests and all of those things, the Texas and Oklahoma will suffer a much lesser financial impact from the move than the $160 million that was originally expected. Let's see. Let's go here. The Big 12 had paid Colorado a $2.5 million signing bonus in late July as it became a new. That's not really that much in the grand scheme of things, but the shares for OU and UT and the 8 continuing schools are being reduced by roughly $7 million per school to what they received in 2022 and 2023 to fund payments of $18 million apiece this year to BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston. Oklahoma and Texas will be getting no money from the SEC's primary revenue sharing pool in 2024 and 2025. However, they stand to collect millions through football and men's basketball specific distributions that already existed under the SEC's bylaws, and they could receive additional money through specially negotiated terms, and they will get what their agreements describe as transition payments being funded by ESPN. So it's a little bit less. I mean, it's more like $100 million as opposed to $160 million.
At the risk of sounding stupid, can you explain that to me like I'm 5?
Okay, so originally their exit payments were $160 million.
Yes.
So now through all these other things, and everybody might wind up getting kind of the money, but at least the money that they are personally outlaying is going to be less because of agreements they have with ESPN and others. So really it's only going to cost them about $100 million per school.
Okay.
So they got out for cheaper, at least individually between those two schools. So, and Chris Del Conte said, everyone's happy. As far as I know, all parties are happy with the outcome. And I think that's true. I think this is not something that's going to be grumbled about like, oh, well, we wanted this much and we got this much. Everybody's happy with where they are. The Big 12 is at 16 teams starting next year. Everybody's thrilled about it. Texas and OU are gone. The Big 12 schools that remain can now not worry about those two schools just shooting down their ideas left and right.
Yep.
So everybody's happy. I think you're going to hear much from this. They might be a little bit bummed that they didn't get that overall number, but anything to make this smoother and get the new teams in. I'll just say this. The accounting departments are going to be going, okay, this revenue, it's going to be fluctuating for the first few years of this transition for everybody who's coming in and coming out. Reduce share, like the teams in the Big Ten, reduce shares, even though they may be making more money, are going to be budgeting differently year in and year out because of the way that goes. And then, so it's going to be chaotic. But yeah, this was interesting that they negotiated it down. So,
yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, it is good to know. So,
sorry, I'm still trying to fully wrap my head around what exactly that means for fans of, say, the remaining schools.
Yeah,
the ones that went through the whole thing from the very start. Those 8.
Yeah. So,
because you said the bit about less money to help pay out the 4 new schools this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. ESPN is cushioning their blow. So. And again, because they really wanted this to happen, they should. when Texas called up, when all this came about and they called ESPN at no point said, no. Guys, let's not reinvent the wheel here. At no point did they ever say, whoa. We understand that you guys are legacy, important, big blue blood schools and have big names and brands and all that stuff, but let's not get crazy here. Instead, it was, yes, absolutely, we'll totally do that. How do we make it happen? And then they got to work on the contract. So this is a really long article.
I bet.
It's really long, and there's a lot in it. But Steve Berkowitz, USA Today, I'll actually just post a link in the chat for those who are interested in it. So, nobody's going to the poorhouse. Nobody's going to be, it's all fine for everybody. But there you go. Texas and OU will be paying a little bit less out of their own pockets, especially because ESPN and Disney are making it better for them. So, yay. Wish Disney would make something better for me.
Yeah, the day that happens is the day hell freezes over.
Here's the deal. I would make this deal. You give me one day in a room with the people making stuff at Disney and just let me throw out all my ideas and just give me a percentage of whatever you take. Because I have 100. Like, just roll them through, like the ESPN people, the Star Wars people, the Marvel people. What else does Disney own now? Home Alone. They own Home Alone now. Like, I'll just say stop making Home Alone movies. Macaulay Culkin's 40 years old. That's the only one we like. Those are the things I would do. Just give me in a room for one day. Just an 8-hour day. Send people in, and I'll just tell them they can do them or not do them. But if they do, I think I have some ideas. Some might be terrible, but some might be solid gold. I promise you I could fix that Star Wars hotel problem. I promise you I could. First thing, don't charge people $5,000 a night or whatever it is. That's insane.
First thing, know how much they charge.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, though. It's like for a family of 4 for 2 nights, it's like $6,000.
Jeez.
Nuts. What's why it's like even super rich people are like, look, man, I'm not doing that. Why would you even want to do it again? Like, even if you said, okay, we're going to do this once. Why would you go back and do it again? Because that's how you kind of make your money in the vacation biz, because people keep coming and recommending it to you. Anyway, when we come back, Josh Nabors dives into the weekend that is ahead with me. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitsche Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitsche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitsche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitsche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 20
26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Engel at the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Josh Nabors, the Neighborhood Watch on Crystal Ball College Football, joins us now. And Josh, it's Prove It Week for a lot of teams in the country. This is, where you could potentially have your dreams dashed into the season. And I'll just start with Florida State and Clemson. Florida State loses this game, then LSU game doesn't mean much unless they go haul off and win all the rest. And for Clemson, if Clemson wins this game, then they're maybe not dead like everybody thought after the Duke game.
Paul, nice to talk to you once again. I have to ask you first, scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you?
10 is not a high enough number. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's how I feel too. That's how I feel too for Florida State because, and honestly, I know this sounds crazy. I saw that line when it opened and I was like, 10% of me was like, there's a chance Clemson might be favored by the end of the week. Now it went the other way, which I think was ultimately where we were going to head. But, Clemson has dominated the series, right, in recent memory. And so Florida State, the red bandana game last week, Boston College, that was just such a really strange game overall. So I guess you could throw it out. Maybe. The big question, this is the one everybody else is having too, is does Clemson have enough meaningful playmakers, right? Their wide receiver room is a casualty of Dabo Swinney not being willing enough to go and hit the portal. Conversely, the other side of things, the Florida State wide receiver room is a product of a willingness to adapt to modern college football. And so I am going to side with the side that has adapted to modern college football. And I grew up in 26, Paul, so I watched a lot of Clemsoning growing up. I watched Clemsoning stop. I don't think we're back to this isn't Clemsoning anymore. This is something totally different because the way college football is going is different. This is just a failure to adapt. And so on principle alone, I'm going to go with the team that looks like they're adapting more. I'm going to go with the coach who looks like he's adapting more. I'm going to tentatively, a 6 out of 10 in confidence, so not very high, go with your Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 because I think this has become a rivalry game, and you can't really, like that. It wasn't a rival. Florida State has 2 main rivals, and now they have a third, and that would be Clemson. Right. So, it's only developed that in that now Clemson has dominated this thing for 7 years, and Florida State hasn't won since Jameis Winston left. So that's got to be the difference.
That's their biggest advantage. That's the biggest advantage because the players in the field are no longer Clemson's biggest advantage in this game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
The psychological part of it's the advantage.
Yeah, that's what it is. They've just held it over their heads. Now, elsewhere, we have Oregon and Colorado. The Dion hype train rolls into Eugene. And this is going to be interesting to see, even if they do wind up losing this game, which they are 20-point dogs in it. If they do, do they shatter that spread, which I think is because of the way they play is a huge possibility. And two, how do you respond to playing the best offense that you have seen, the most complete team you've seen all year, one that you can point to with Oregon and go, I mean, their problems are not as big as everybody else's problems. I mean, they don't have many.
Right. Yeah, this is going to be a go to the craps table, let's play some, or, go to the casino rather, and let's play some red zone roulette, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a lot of yards. And then, I think Oregon ultimately wins the game. I think how close the game is going to be defined by how well Colorado's defense bows up in the red zone and gets stops down there. And, how often their offense does the same thing. How often do they score? Now, here's what I will say. Shedeur Sanders, that is a guy who wants to stand in the pocket and he wants to make a play. I will give this kid a lot of respect. He is a tough customer, sometimes to his detriment. But it is really worked out. I mean, he wants to hang in that pocket. He wants to hold that football. He wants to get through those reads. He wants to make something happen for his team, which is weird if you're in shoot offense. It's a guy committed to getting through his reads. But you love to see that. I think it's actually better for his NFL prospects that we're seeing that for him. So yeah, I think that's a compelling part about this game. But Oregon's got the better horses. I think depth wise they're in a better spot. And look, man, if Colorado State's offense can do it to you, there's a good chance Bo Nix and Oregon's offense can do it to you. And I've got a lot of confidence in what's going on right now. And Dan Lanning has talked a lot about this game, about this team. I think they're going to back it up, and they're at home too. So I think Deion's teams have been, generally speaking, well prepared. I thought last week they weren't well prepared, which was odd to see against Jay Norvell's team. But I think this week they're going to be very well prepared. So yeah. I'm expecting a close game, but I think Oregon's just got a little bit more quality.
I wonder if he seized. I mean, he was going to seize on the sunglasses thing either way, but if he leaned into it a little bit harder because he knew his team wasn't maybe going as well and needed to wake him up before they went in there. And of course, they didn't wake up until late in the game. So
no,
they didn't show who they were the previous 2 weeks until very late in that game. All right, Alabama and Ole Miss, Josh. What level of alarm bell needs to be going off at Alabama about the quarterback right now? Or is it not just the quarterback? Is it maybe their roster, while still fantastic, is not as deep and meaty as it used to be?
Yeah, so I watched the Texas game, and I think I came away from it looking at it differently than a lot of people did. I think they need Milroe because you watch Alabama last year, right? And they needed Bryce Young to make a lot of the plays that he made to overcome some of their deficiencies. And Jalen Milroe is not that guy. Now, how many guys are Bryce Young? He was the number one pick for a reason. He was a Heisman Trophy winner for a reason. The guy is a spectacular player. And I watched that Texas game, and did he miss some open throws? Yes. But there's a lot of plays that if you insert not as athletic quarterback, if you insert Tyler Buckner there, they eat a lot more sacks. And they don't have as many chances to spring big plays as they did as when Milroe was in the game. And so I came away from that contest feeling a little bit differently. And I was shocked last week when they went away from him because there were opportunities to hit massive plays against Texas. Milroe just didn't make the throws, but what you gave up in the throwing department, you made up for in the fact that he extended some plays that the other quarterbacks on their roster would not have been able to extend in a meaningful way. And so this is not just about the quarterback situation for Alabama, in my opinion.
No, I think their roster is not as good as it has been. And look, most teams that aren't named Georgia would still probably swap rosters with them. There's not that, but the rosters are a lot closer, so you have a chance to lose more games because
would Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, LSU flip rosters with Alabama? No. Right. And that's more teams than what have in the past. Florida State too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's teams that would be like, no, you guys, that's great and all, but we're fine. We're good. So yeah, that's a big difference. Cam Rising is back for Utah. If that was not the case, I would pick UCLA in a walk even in Utah because of their offense. Their plan to keep you in a rock fight without Cam Rising in the game probably doesn't work against Dante Moore, who probably people haven't seen enough yet, and that high-flying Chip Kelly offense. Because even on a bad day, they're going to have like a 24-point day. Like Chip Kelly will go in and be like, we only scored 24. And Utah right now was not doing that. Cam Rising comes back. I flipped my pick to Utah because they're at home. Cam Rising's back. They can make it the kind of game they wanted to, and they were in a shootout with UCLA last year anyway. So do you think that we see maybe a similar game that we saw last year, even though this is Cam Rising's first game?
Yeah, I mean, I hope UCLA has enjoyed their spring training. I'm not really sure what they've been doing the last 3 weeks. Yeah. Their schedule's been horrible, and they've been treating the games like spring training games, essentially. Look, Utah has had this like really challenging schedule. I mean, they had the Florida game, relatively speaking, is what I'm saying. The Florida game, the Baylor game, and then Weber State, who's I think it was Weber State, right?
Yeah.
Not a bad FCS school either. And so they've been through it already. At home is the big advantage, right? Them being at home is such a massive advantage. And I think they can even take a quarter or two to ease Cam Rising into things. But I think he's ready to go. I think they, and we've heard things about him. We've seen him warming up, seeing it ready. Their team, and this is credit to Kyle Whittingham, their program now is so good that they have been able to get by with third and fourth string quarterbacks. And look, Nate Johnson, who was a top 100 guy, I believe, who saves their tails against Baylor, was like the third or fourth guy off the bench. Like, oh my God, you talking stash guys like that now? They can overcome not having the two best quarterbacks. So hell yeah, this is I don't want to call them a national power yet, but like west of the Rockies, Utah is a power. Utah is a legitimate power west of the Rockies now. And so I'm going to roll with them because they're at home and they're going to get their guy back.
Yeah.
So I'm a believer.
Of all the teams coming in, like ranking, like who the 8 teams that stayed should be the most afraid of, obviously it's Deion in Colorado because he's not even scratched the surface of what he's going to do yet. And that's what's really scary. Utah, because they are such a machine. And then to me, UCF, because they've got one of the best coaches in America, in Gus Malzahn, a guy who's been in national championship games, who's coached in the SEC, and now can recruit a little bit more in Texas to add that to where he actually is in Orlando, Florida. But Utah is scary because as long as Whittingham is there, or they have that Whittingham mindset, say he retires and they hire somebody who just thinks exactly like him, they're going to be the toughest out because you will not be able to just rely on a certain way to beat them because they're going to punch you in the stomach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are a gut punch team.
Yeah,
you put it perfectly. They want to punch the stomach.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's talk about Baylor and Texas. I mean, Big 12 is kind of a weird week. I want to talk about Baylor and Texas and Tech and West Virginia in particular. But Baylor and Texas, Baylor is yet to show a lot of fire yet, Josh. But this game to the fans of Baylor means a lot because this is the good riddance Texas game. So there will be some emotion there, but there'll also be a lot of Texas fans there. Texas, this is a prove-it week to – kind of different than Florida State and Clemson. Florida State's problem last year was they beat everybody that they were supposed to, but any game that they were not the favorite, they proved that they weren't. This is a game where they can do that against Clemson, as where Texas' problem is when they're the favorite, most often they win, but when they weren't, they would lose these games that nobody saw coming.
Yeah, I think the good news for their schedule, the way it started off, is that they've been able to like the Rice game, people were like, oh, they look bad. But it's like, well, they're preparing for Alabama. And the Wyoming, they didn't look great in the beginning, but it's also because, they've got Baylor on the horizon. So I'm of the belief that they've been getting ready for this game. I think this might be a hammer and nail situation. Baylor, to me, has not shown the type of quality in terms of player. And the effort level's been, I'm not sure if it's a mixture of effort plus quality. I think that's kind of a situation, but I know last week's game was weird, but this is kind of last stand time because if you get off to a 1-3 start, and look, they can kind of shake things up when Shapen gets back, but we don't know when that's going to be. So at some point, you need to show something. And look, they were tough against Utah, but in the end of the game, they crumbled. Their spine was not as tough as it looked like it was going to be at the beginning of the game. So there's a lot on the line here, in my opinion, for the Baylor Bears in terms of like what kind of season is this going to be for them. But I'm thinking more hammer and nail, and I think Texas is ready. I think Texas is ready to make another statement this week because it's been a week, and I think people weren't overwhelmed with their effort against Wyoming last week.
Yeah. Now, Texas Tech is kind of a weird story this year. They had that upset against Wyoming, or Wyoming upset them at their place, which I'm sure the next time Wyoming calls and says, you want to make that same deal again, Tech's going to be like, we'll get back to you. And then West Virginia.
Missouri, they've caught Wazoo at that game too, so I'm not sure why teams keep going to play them so early in the season.
Yeah, no, look, Craig Bohl's going to get you. He's got it. He's thinking about
already,
it.
yeah.
And look, he went into Austin last week with that same kind of confidence. Carried it into the fourth quarter, and then it was just too much. So, but then they lost a very spirited game against a really good Oregon team we've already talked about. West Virginia got thumped by Penn State, which most people thought they would. But now they've turned around and they've beaten a Pitt team that they really honestly, after watching the game, they probably should have beaten. Phil Jurkovec is struggling to complete passes, and even without their starter, their defense played really well. Neil Brown is playing this entire season with a chip on his shoulder because he knows every win counts twice as much for him when it comes to keeping his job. This one, for the rest of their seasons, to me, is big for Joey McGuire and Neil Brown, and for Neil Brown, the rest of his career in Morgantown.
Right. So I've come into this season with West Virginia saying that I thought Neil Brown had to coach his way back onto the hot seat. I have been so unimpressed with what that program has brought to the table. And I have been very impressed with what's happening this year. Number one, he's taken back play calling because he has said, if I'm going to go out, it's going to be on my terms. Good. That is the way this thing should be. They have given you an extra chance, it feels like, right? Because of financial issues and that bad contract extension. And so I've been asking, what does West Virginia do well? Well, they want to run the ball, and they want to play some defense. And I thought their effort against Penn State, they were outclassed. Thought the effort was great. I was a fan of the effort in that game. Then last week, I love what I saw, despite the fact the quarterback goes down, your running back goes down. They were fighting the entire way. And look, they're going to win some, they're going to lose some. But they were mixing things up, Paul, when it came to running the football last week. I mean, I was reaching out to a buddy who's a West Virginia fan. I was saying, look, I love the way that they're mixing things up. It's actually a fun offense to watch because they have to get creative with how they're running the football. The receivers aren't that great, but their offensive line is their strength, and they're pulling guys, they're moving guys around. There's a lot of variety in that running game.
Yeah.
On the other side of things. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead with Texas Tech.
Man, Texas Tech. If you want to make a Big 12 title push, you have to win this game. And there's a lot of games this week, honestly, where I think people are saying, "Oh, it's the first conference game, whatever." Like BYU and Kansas. Let's be honest about it. Like even if one of those teams loses the game, they're not going to be in the Big 12 title game. Mm-hmm. So one of those teams will emerge a dark horse. One of those teams will emerge as, "I'm sorry, thanks for playing, have a good season," all that kind of stuff. Texas Tech, if they want to be in Arlington, they have to win this game. They have to absolutely 110% win this game. There is no 1-3 start, and you end up in Arlington, in my opinion, for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. This thing is going to go one of two ways. So you have to win this game. They should win this game. I think they will win this game because they've got the better overall team at this point, and they're a bit healthier. But there's some serious concerns there because they are. I know last year the big thing was, hey, we win close games. Well, when you play the way they do, right? Like you can take the games will go on these big swings because you might score fast. But if you play that fast and you hang your hat on playing fast, if you go 3 and out 3 times, you've had the ball for maybe 2 minutes total. Guess who's on the field all the time? Your defense. And their defense is not good enough to be getting meaningful stops that often. There's not many defenses that are. So if you want to play that way, you're gonna have some variance, and I think we've seen that so far in their results.
Yeah, I think with Tech, look, you don't just replace a Tyree Wilson who is, some guys are just insane pass rushers, and that makes up for so much on your defense because you're like, oh, we got a 3-and-out here. Well, how'd you do that? Because Tyree Wilson sacked the guy for a 7-yard loss. Like, that's how you got the 3-and-out. And then you take him away, and you might still get some sacks, but you're not going to have those plays like he made. So I think they're seeing a little bit of that. I think that over time, I'm very bullish on what Joey McGuire is going to do in Lubbock.
I agree.
But, having a Tyree Wilson, like, changes your whole thing. For any, like, you put Tyree Wilson on Georgia, like, all of a sudden they're even better. Like, they'd be like, oh, we didn't think things could get good. And we have a Tyree Wilson. Top 5 picks don't grow on trees. They don't. They're a hard thing to come by. All right. There is at 6:30, there is a 3-game slate, and I'm sorry to leave Texas and Baylor out of this, but a 3-game slate that is going to be difficult to choose from. The Pac-2 championship in Washington State and Oregon State, Notre Dame and Ohio State, and the whiteout game, Iowa at Penn State. If you had to pick one, if I told you, Josh, we can only give you one TV channel, you have rabbit ear antennas, only one's going to come in, and you get to pick which one is going to come in. Which one are you doing?
You pick the helmet game because that's what as a red-blooded American male, that's what you do. you pick the helmet. Well, here's the thing. So luckily I don't have to choose.
Yeah.
No, I'm a bouncer. I like to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't have to pick one,
yeah.
I mean, I actually am really curious to see how good Kyle McCord is because the better quarterback is on Notre Dame's side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for a team that's been producing not outstanding pro quarterbacks, but at least outstanding college quarterbacks, Ohio State has been the better in the last 10, 15 years. Like Ohio State's normally had a better quarterback, and now Notre Dame has a better quarterback. And also their offensive line is tremendous. And Ohio State's defense has been very good at beating teams that have been lesser than them, but I'm not sure this offense for Notre Dame is a lesser offense. So let's see if Ohio State can take advantage of the fact that Sam Hartman likes to hold the ball, wants to throw it downfield. They want to make big plays. They also have a good offensive line that can protect for long periods of time. And then will the offensive firepower show up? Can they get that running game going for Ohio State? How much red will there be in the crowd? We know Ohio State travels well. There's been a knock against Notre Dame fans as well. That when Georgia comes to town, right? The Cubs game Friday night, people are calling the dogs, and you see the crowd on Saturday night. So what does that look like as well? I'm very curious, but yeah, I mean, you've given me 3.5. I'm taking the Irish. That's the way I'm leaning. And I mean, my second choice is the Pac-2 game. Look, I'll go and look at the drive chart for the Iowa Penn State game because that game's usually drunk as hell. So I can go and look at the drive chart for that game after the game's over. I'll catch the highlights of that game. So I would go number 1, the helmet game, Notre Dame and Ohio State. Number 2, I would go Pac-2 championship. And number 3, I would go with the Iowa Penn State game.
I think that the Pac-2 championship game is going to be electric. It's going to be it's going to be so much fun. The Cam Ward, DJU, like this could be so much fun to watch.
I agree.
Both those programs, like they're brethren, except now they have to hate each other tomorrow. I love it.
Yeah,
like we're in this together, but F you for 24 hours.
Well, a Pac-12 title, a legitimate Pac-12 title contender will emerge from that game.
Yes,
I think more so Oregon State if they win the game, but yeah, I think a title contender will emerge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Josh, thank you so much. Enjoy the football weekend. We'll talk to you again soon, man. I always love having you on.
Appreciate it, Paul. We'll talk soon.
All right, Josh Nabors, Crystal Ball College Football, the Neighborhood Watch. That's our other channel. It has 2 fantastic podcasts on it.
Thanks, Paul.
The Neighborhood Watch and College Football Chaos.
College Chaos.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the basketball
too.
thing. Yeah. College Chaos. So.
But yeah.
Jack's on that one, so.
And Garrett.
I think
Garrett's a bigger draw.
Listen, Garrett's not here today. I don't have to pay him compliments.
Fair enough.
No.
We know how you feel about us.
Garrett is on his way, a journey I've made several times, to Brownwood, Texas, to do a high school football game. And Brownwood is in a very strange part of, it's kind of where West Texas starts. And if you're not from Texas or you've not driven through Texas, I remember I had a friend, my college roommate was moving from Tallahassee to L.A. He was taking a job at Cal Baptist University. And so his mom was riding with him to kind of help him. He had a dog. And so he said, hey, I need to stop in Austin, and we're going to stay the night in Austin. And can I, do you know, like, I said, yeah, you can stay with my grandparents. They'll put you up. And so they stayed with my grandparents. I went down there to see him, and his mom goes, well, how much longer do you think we have? I said, well, to LA, I mean, it's going to be a while. She's no, until we get out of Texas. I'm like, oh, no, about 7 hours, 8, maybe 9. I don't know. Depends on what way you take and what you hit. And she's like, well, we're halfway through. I'm like, kind of. I mean, it's a big state. It's, we brag about it for a reason. It's what it is. And so Brownwood, though, is like right where I would say West Texas starts. And that is, it's a bit of a haul from here, but it's not all that far, but that's where he's going tonight. That's why he's not here for the first part of the show like he normally is. So.
Well, that we wanted to give him kind of as much of a day off as we could.
Yeah.
We like the guy, or at least some of us like the guy.
There's also not a major thoroughfare that goes through there. So it's not like you can get on you could, but you're going to there's a state highway, and it's a fine trip. It's normal, but it's not like you're not going on interstates or anything through there. Like you're going to have to drive through some one stoplight towns. You're definitely going to do that. Jack, would you play break 6 here, please?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah, would you play? Yeah. So we get the open correct. Well, maybe or maybe it doesn't matter. I can't remember. It's been hours since I did that. When we come back, Sam Bradshaw, Signal365.com breaks down how Baylor can win some matchups against Texas. This is 365 Sports.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533, Chuck Verno at 720 North 64th Street, Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
So before we get to Sam Bradshaw, I have to answer a question on the Josh on the chat room asked, is Brownwood close to Lampasas? And I said, what's close? I think it was a little bit, I mean, what is your definition of close? Is it in Texas terms? Yeah, sure, it's close. It's like an hour and a half or so away. But or an hour, I guess. Maybe more. I don't know, I haven't made that drive in a bit. But yeah, close in Texas terms is relative.
Yeah, if it's further than Dallas to Waco, 100 miles, it's not close.
Yeah, but 100 miles is close. Like in Florida, when I lived in Florida, if you went Tampa to Orlando, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours based on traffic, you were staying in Orlando. You didn't make the loop and come back. But I have gone Dallas to Waco or Austin to Waco and back in a day and not even thought about it more times than I can count. I've gone Houston and back in a day 5 or 6 times and not even thought about it. And that's twice as long because it's just so different here. So anyway, but I'm sure Sam's done those too. And you just don't think about it when you live in Texas because everything's far apart, but it's relative to all that. But Sam Bradshaw, Sikkim365.com. Sam, outside, you're not watching film and breaking down, emotional output when it comes to Baylor. I think that's probably, even before you get in the weeds on talent, what maybe their biggest issue is that they have a confidence problem, they have an emotional problem, they can't really, intersect those peaks at the same time, even against teams that they should beat handily. And they've got a team that's playing really confident right now coming in. But outside of that, scheme-wise, what does Baylor do that Texas could have problems with?
Thanks for having me on. And I would add to that, you've got a situation where a lot of your better players are young, inexperienced, or injured problem. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a Baylor team here that's missing its top quarterback, top running back, top safety, top linebacker, top defensive tackle. It keeps coming. But getting more to what Baylor can do, Baylor's run game, particularly if Sawyer has the ability to run, or if they get Chapin in there, who can throw, both of which are iffy at best. That wide zone scheme does a good job kind of displacing the defense, and Grimes does a really good job scheming things off of it that could potentially give Texas some good trouble on that. But really, this is going to come down to, what can Baylor do? I'm not as worried on the offense as I am the defense. I mean, the offense, if Sawyer can run a little bit, I think you have at least a little bit to keep him off balance. But, the passing output has to be an awful lot better than it was. Last week was not serviceable. And if that's not going to get it done, you probably need to give that Martinez kid a chance to sling it and put in a package for him. But defensively is where my biggest concern is. Sarkisian is one of the masters at just what you do. I'm going to use pre-snap motion, formation, show your guys a couple different things, and then from there, I'm going to get a situation where my guy has the edge on yours. Multiple times last year, once out of the Wildcat and once near the goal line where they tossed it to Bijan. They motioned away from where they were going, and then Baylor's defense predictably adjusted, and then they had open grass with leverage for the offensive player. I think this is a game where even if your guys don't match up all that great on the back end, being aggressive, hitting them with some heavy zone pressures, and doing some other things just to try and get them off kilter is going to probably be your best option. Ewers is very, very good when he's on, but he can be a little erratic and a little streaky. And you saw that against Wyoming. And if the Bears can do that, that will make this game a lot more interesting.
Texas is obviously a lot deeper than Baylor. Is the secondary versus those receivers the matchup that is the most troubling when you've got Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders? And I mean, heck, Isaiah Neor's not even played, right? And that was a guy they were thrilled about having. Jordan Whittington's like the fourth option. They are so unbelievably pick your poison on offense right now when they are going. This kind of pales in comparison to a lot of the teams, or those teams pale in comparison to what Texas has thrown out this year.
Well, I think they've got a good set of skill guys. I mean, Xavier Worthy's been their 100-meter dangerous guy. that you have to keep your eyes on the whole time for a couple of years now. And then, of course, getting the Georgia transfer is huge. And then Whittington is a nice complementary piece. And then Sanders is a pretty solid receiver in his own right. But what makes him really difficult is they can put him into patterns and they can use him as a receiving threat out of different formations because he's a tight end that's that versatile. And it works really well with Sark's design. You know, Baylor's got some limitations on the defensive end, just in terms of how they're going to match up the coverage. So getting some of those guys back healthy, particularly if they can get the nose tackle, that could potentially help a lot. But really, I'm more worried about the overall approach. Are you going to sit back in some of your more conservative looks and let yourself be schemed against, or are you going to try and disrupt these guys? And, you know, you might give up a play or two, but you also might get off the field a couple times. And getting off the field a couple times, if your offense can get it going and milk some clock, that could lead you into an interesting situation late in the game.
So, Sam, what is your best prediction for how this game is going to play out?
I think Texas is going to get out to a lead. I think it's not the Alabama game. It's not some other game. I don't think my best description on Texas offensively is it reminds me a lot of 2010 Baylor, not 2011 when Rob won the Heisman and everything like that. It's an offense that you can see where they're going, but so many of the parts are still kind of young, but kind of getting their experience in. You've got a lot of ability to do a lot of different things, but the precision's not quite there.
Yeah.
And as such, you have games where those offenses would potentially disappoint. You know, you saw a couple of those with Baylor where they hit a couple big plays against A&M that year, but the offense buttered apart from that. And they had the awful outing in Fort Worth, and then they had the bad bowl game against Illinois. But then the following year, they were a juggernaut. You know, I feel like this Texas team is very talented, but they are very young. I mean, they've got like maybe 5 offensive linemen with any real experience. Now, they're all highly recruited guys, but that's not a whole lot of experience in that depth. And you've got similar situations at different parts of that roster that if you can disrupt them, you have a chance. I don't think they're quote unquote back yet. I think that I think they're on their way to being, and Sarkisian's a guy that took Washington from 0-11 and brought them to like 2 or 3 consecutive bowls and left a full cupboard for Chris Peterson to take the next leg with. I think they'll get there. It's just, I think they're a year away.
Do you think that Quinn Ewers is a year away too then, based on that?
Well, I think his maturity has a lot to do with it. You know, I feel like he's a guy that can be a little streaky right now, just through stretches of that Wyoming game. But when he's on, he's really on. And you even saw that a little bit in the Baylor game last year until Baylor's defensive front wore out and Texas was able to kind of just get what they wanted late in the game in the run game. But, you know, I feel like he's got all the tools, and when he's on, his accuracy is really good, but I don't think he's quite there yet, but he's got the tools to really develop into something.
So, Sam, after this week, like, you know, this is going to be a big game full of emotion for fans. This is the, you know, kind of for Baylor fans, the good riddance Texas game, you know, on your way out the door kind of a thing. Now, look, the stadium's going to be a lot of burnt orange. It's sold out. The students' allotment is sold out. That does not happen all that often. You know, where they're just going to be wall to wall, green and gold on that side. But how much does emotion have to play a factor in this game for Baylor?
I think in terms of focus and preparation, it absolutely does. I think it'll definitely play a role. You know, you got to get up for games against in-state opponents. You absolutely have to. And, you know, they definitely want to send Texas out with an L. You know, all the remaining Big 12 teams absolutely want to do that, both them and Oklahoma. You know, so it's definitely front of mind. But I'm much more of the mind, let's just see how Baylor handles Baylor. So far this year, you've seen spots where they've looked really good. Like the offense with Sawyer in the first half against Utah looked really good. And then once he got injured, everything fell apart. And then you saw stretches where that defense was playing well until they had an awful drive with 10 guys on the field late in the game to let them tie it, and then everything unraveled. You know, you've seen stretches where these guys have actually played reasonably well, but they've got to put it together, and honestly, to win this weekend, they probably need a little help from Texas making some mistakes. And here's hoping some young guys can do that.
What do you think this game means for the rest of the season for Baylor?
Honestly, not a lot. Other than another win and a chance to really just grab some momentum. But in the grand scheme of things, it's going to come down to, can you get your act together week in, week out? That's something that eluded this team for the most part. And, you know, so much of it is what you're doing, not necessarily who you're facing, which is why you've seen them look pretty poorly against two of the weaker teams they played. I mean, don't get me wrong, Long Island was never going to win that game. But just the sloppy play on a couple defensive possessions there, and then offensively just not being in sync at all, and letting a receiver get deep and outside on top of a defender who was playing deep and outside of him. You know, you just can't have that. I mean, you can't let that sweep series and that quarterback sweep series, the receiver and quarterback attacking each edge, you can't really let that tear you apart. You know, you've got to find a way to get things done and handle your business. That's not your opponent being so good. That's you needing to handle your business. If they do that, this is a team that could rattle off a few wins. But we need to see them do it.
Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com. Sam, great stuff. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thank you.
Sam Bradshaw. And, yeah, Jack, this one, I'm just curious to see if they can find the fire and ride it for a little while, you know?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of differing opinions on the fire, the juice of the team. Like, guys inside that room, inside that locker room, they believe they have it. They believe they have that energy. Some on the outside are with them. Some are very much like, I haven't seen anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see, because I do think they will come out with energy no matter what tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see what form that's in and how noticeable it is.
Yeah. They've got to hit something they haven't found yet emotionally. And maybe they will. Look, Texas is coming in. That's as good a reason as any to get fired up. Honestly, like, I would need no bigger motivation than ruining Texas' season to get fired up. But it's also about fired up, staying locked in. And then the other thing that happens is when things don't go this team's way because they were on such a long losing streak, their confidence gets rattled so quickly. And then, like, again, the Utah game, you know, look, of course, that pick that set up Utah for the win was in the worst possible place on the field it could have been.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, like, outside of it being at the 1 yard line, it was just, well, especially like, it was maybe even better for Utah.
They got to control the clock at the end because of
where they were. You know, like, it worked out like, all right, well, this is, if you had picked where to start a drive with this much time on the clock, I'd pick right here at the 31 yard line or where they were, you know.
Like, if you take for granted that Baylor should come out and start decently, whether that's a drive or the game as a whole, I think the key is going to be they need to finish. Every opportunity they have, they need to finish. You get into the red zone, you need to finish with a touchdown. You have it close at halftime, finish the half strong. You have it close heading into the fourth quarter, somehow, if possible, somehow you have it close like that. You need to finish. Like, even if I don't know how the team would react if this ended up being like TCU last year, because I don't think they're in it for moral victories, no matter what they might say post game.
Well, I think that one in particular is what really crushed them.
Yeah,
because they were right there, and then which
makes me worried for this team this year having a game. If they get in that same scenario, could they get crushed for the year in week 4?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Golly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I think that I think there's a lot like they're teetering on the brink of either like fixing things and like go, all right, well they can win. So look, there's no reason they shouldn't be competitive after this one in every game that they play. I mean, there's nobody on the schedule who looks that daunting outside of Kansas State to me. But there are matchup problems that I wonder about. Like when you're playing TCU and they're just so wide open and can go. Like, you have one bad quarter against them. The offenses just are so different that they're maybe not set up to come back down from 17. They might come out maybe down 10, but 17 might be too much for this particular team. And that's why if Texas jumps out to a big league, I think it would be wild. You know? So it's going to be hard for them to do that. And if Texas has any kind of confidence, they're in Steve Sarkisian even said it. Like they're reveling in this. Like, we're going to be booed everywhere anyway, and now booed extra because you're leaving the conference and all that stuff, and they're there for it. So this is the first time that's going to happen to them this year, where the other team is extra mad at you, and they're already on a default setting are mad at you for being Texas. So now they're extra mad. So can they go in there and take those shots with, I don't know the players may not care as much as the fans do, but the fans are certainly going to make you feel it.
I just love how we're finding ways to come up with questions for Texas when really all the questions are about Baylor.
Yeah.
Like Texas, these questions, they should answer them. Like they should answer them. Baylor has all these questions where you're just like, show me something. Like try to answer it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's see. It's a little early. Jack, go ahead and play break 5 here since we didn't. So we're going to catch up on that. We'll do another quick segment here. And then at 5:30, we're going to talk Wazoo and the Pac-2 championship, which is what this game should be called. Trademarking it right now.
I think someone in the chat said that in the first 15 minutes of the show.
That they're trademarking it?
No, they just said it.
Look.
So
I'm doing the show. I can't always read the chat. Pac-2 championship.
Look, Paul, it's not an original thought.
It's not, but I'm trademarking it.
Wow.
You're going
to steal from the loyal viewers of this show?
Yes. Yes, I am. No, I don't know. I don't think, here's the thing, trademarking something like that, how far is that going to get you? Like they're not even going to call it that whenever what happens with the Pac-12 and Mountain West and relegation and all that comes back around. They're not going to. When we come back, just kind of another short college football segment, and then we'll talk Wazoo and Oregon State. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels in Waco right now. Amazing deals. You may want to know, why would I want to go anywhere else? Ram Power Days get a 2023 1500 Lone Star 4x4 crew cab, $11,000 off MSRP or 2.9% financing for 72 months. 2023 1500 Laramie 4x4 crew cab, $12,500 off MSRP or 2.9% financing for 72 months. And on top of that, it is the Jeep Adventure Days. A 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, $5,500, or how about 10% off MSRP on the 2023 Jeep Gladiators. All trim levels, Sport, Overland, Rubicon, Mojave, that's right. Or if that's not enough, the 2023 Jeep Compass, 10% off MSRP. They have the inventory. Ted Teague, the general manager and CEO. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco, Loop 340 east of 84.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I'm going to give a quick shout out to, you heard Smokey talk about Allen Samuels. I took my car in this week to Allen Samuels. I bought my car there. I've had repeated air conditioning problems, and they fixed it. It's like sitting in an icy tornado in there now. And this is not a state where you can skate by without that. So, and I just want to say.
What do you mean? I did that for like 2 different summers.
Oh, God, you're a better man than me.
Yeah.
Like
we do that.
2 seconds into it breaking, I was just driving here. You know when it broke down was last Friday on my way here, 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, okay, well, this is going to be a problem for 3 days. But thanks to Ted Teague and everybody over there. I love Ted. Love everything they do. So, and thank you so much for their sponsorship of this program. Jack, I've neglected a couple of games, and you pointed out to me. We have not gotten in depth about BYU Kansas. We have not gotten in depth about the Skillet, which is the last time they're going to play that one for a little bit, as TCU is leaving the rivalry. And then we have not talked a lot about Texas Tech and West Virginia, although I did with Josh. We'll talk with Texas Tech and West Virginia. Swing game for either one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Swing game. And if Texas Tech wants to live up to the hype, they've got to win it. If Neil Brown wants to continue to build on what he did last week, he's got to win it. Because you beat the rival, he might get, a 20% bump of like, okay, well, you beat Pitt. So let's see where this is going. But if you turn right around and lose to Texas Tech, which is going to be tough, it's in Lubbock, right? No, it's in Morgantown?
It's in Morgantown.
It's Morgantown. So if you turn right around and lose at home, that goodwill evaporates really quickly.
The fact that it's in Morgantown makes it so much more interesting to me because I think if it's in Lubbock, I think it's a pretty much no-brainer. Tech should win that. But it being out in West Virginia, there's a real weird home field advantage that I feel like they have on the rest of the Big 12. Not necessarily teams that are regionally close to them, but the Big 12. And And Joey needs this win. He built up, frankly, too much hype this offseason.
Yeah.
He built up too much hype this offseason, and I put it on him because I think he really got that train rolling. Now, maybe he wanted to pull it back, maybe he didn't, I don't know. But this is about as must-win as it can be, I think, for him right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, going to the Iron Skillet game, this one has been good over the last few years. The last one with Sonny Dykes versus Gary Patterson, where Sonny Dykes essentially won Gary Patterson's job away from him.
Yeah.
But would have nice to know that was going to happen, like going into that game. The winner gets the loser's job.
The winner takes the Power 5 job.
Yeah, the winner. But no, that one was really interesting. And then now with TCU leaving the rivalry, SMU going to the ACC, this one's got a little sauce on it. We had Taylor McCarg on the other day. He thinks, I tend to agree with him, that Preston Stone's the better quarterback in this matchup. And I think it's going to be really good. And TCU, they really, God, they need something a little bit more. They got that win against Houston, but Houston might have a lot more problems than we even realized at the start of the year. TCU needs to get some momentum going. That opening loss to Colorado, I think is going to sting them a little bit because now they're the first victim of Deion, and they can't turn on the TV without hearing about it. So while that one's long since over for Colorado, it's probably going to sit in your head a little bit more. Be like, man, we were at the front of this train and so close and didn't get it done. And yeah, I mean, look, if here's the deal. If Deion doesn't win that game against TCU, if it's 45-42, the narrative on Deion at 2-1 is like, whoa, he's interesting. They've got a fun offense, but they just beat Nebraska, who's got a lot of problems, and then they beat Colorado State in a thriller. So things are more interesting, but it's not a 3-0. Could this team contend with the other big dogs in the Pac-12 thing? And TCU started that. So I think that's a little bit probably in their head. Yeah. So they need to. This is a rivalry game. They need to get a W and then sprint into the rest of the Big 12 season, although they've already played one conference game when they beat Houston.
There are some consequences beyond this year, though, for both these programs. Mm-hmm. Now that SMU is joining the ACC, it makes it that much more important for TCU to maintain we're the more established Power 5 program. We've been here. We are still better because recruiting in Dallas is about to get a little more interesting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, though I don't want to insult TCU right now. So SMU has been towards the bottom of the barrel out of the schools that can pick from Dallas. I mean, OU and Texas are at the top along with any SEC school that wants to come in. Mm-hmm. Baylor, Tech, TCU, they get kind of the next pickings. And so when you introduce SMU to that level, especially in a head-to-head recruiting matchup with TCU, winning this last skillet, I think it only gets more important. Because of the hiatus, because TCU is leaving that rivalry on the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's going to be some saltiness, I think, on either side of this thing, and Sonny Dykes and TCU need to embrace that. So, but yeah, I think both teams are going to get each other's best shot. This game has never really been boring, or I say never, but not been boring in the last few years. I don't expect that this year, even though TCU I think kind of handled them a little bit last year, but. Yeah, I think that this one's going to be exciting. I think that Preston Stone is gonna have fun. He's gonna, but I think
TCU finds a way to pull it out.
I think TCU maybe finds a way to pull it out, but I'm not going to be surprised with either outcome.
Yeah,
however this game goes, the only thing I expect is to be kind of back and forth and close.
When I'm over at the tailgate, because I'm going to be there pretty early, I'm probably going to be watching the end of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you for that one. Now, BYU and Kansas. Look, BYU had a huge road win against an SEC team in Arkansas, and to be fair, a middle of the pack SEC team.
Yeah, how much better than Kansas is Arkansas?
I don't know if they're better. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, look, they played each other in the bowl game last year, and it went down to 2-point conversions.
Yeah,
so. You know how much better than they are? One overtime of one play of a completed pass better. That's how much better they are.
It's also a very interesting matchup of coaches because Kalani Sitake runs a great program.
Yeah.
Great coach. But Lance Leipold is building something that Kansas hasn't seen in a long time, which is just a solid football program.
Yeah. I'm look, I think Jalen Daniels here is the difference. I think he's the like 3 points usually in Vegas is your home field advantage. I think he's the other 7 in this thing because I think that's what he is. Especially, let's just say they're only leading by 3 or 4 late in the game, and Kansas gets the ball back. Jalen Daniels to me with the hey, you need to go score a touchdown and put this thing away is one of the guys I would want in the whole country. And the Kansas offense is never going to be their problem. That's like. I say never. It's rarely going to be their problem. Like somebody's going to have to do a really good job on them to contain them to a point where you're like, man, what's going on with the offense today? Now, can they get in everybody else's way? We'll see. I think this is going to be a pretty decent game, but I think that 10-point spread is probably really.
It got up to 10?
Yeah, I think it's up to 10. It was 8. Was it 8 before?
I saw it at 8 earlier in the week.
I think it moved to 10. I might be wrong, but I think about 10 points is about what you're going to see here. It's going to be a close game.
9.5.
9.5. So, yeah, 9.5 makes a little sense to me here in this one. When we come back, we're going to talk Wazoo versus Oregon State in a game I am so insanely excited for with Jamie Vinnick of CougFan.com. This is 365 Sports.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, get 2.9% for 72 months on new 2023 1500 Lone Star and Laramie 4x4 crew cabs, or $11,000 off MSRP on Lone Stars and $12,500 off MSRP on Laramies.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Samantha Duvall, Marketing Director for TexasBeefHouse.com. You know all about their great Wagyu beef and product they have. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for anything you want to order. But, Samantha, thanks for your time. There's an auction coming up in the month of November. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so November 11th, we're having our first public beef auction. It's going to be here at our ranch in White House, Texas. It's going to be a live auction. You can bid in person. You can bid on the phone, or we'll also have it online. And we're auctioning off Wagyu and Angus beef. We'll have 30 to 40-pound bundles. They'll be full of steaks, hamburger, and primals. This is perfect for not only the restaurant owners, but also homeowners.
So if somebody wants to load up your deep freezer with some great product from a place that is just delivering all of the time, with Wagyu from their ranch to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at UnitePrivateNetworks.com.
Jamie Vinnick of CougFan.com joins us now. And Jamie, I know, like, we're going to talk about realignment in a second, and the Cougs' really unfortunate position in all of this. But for them to be right now a team that the rest of the Pac-12 is scared of, that is playing a team in Oregon State that the rest of the Pac-12 is scared of, in a game for even so much more than just this win, what's the vibe around Pullman right now?
Oh, it's certainly buzzing. There's a lot of people in town, a lot of Coug fans. Haven't seen a lot of Beef fans yet, but I'm sure they'll be here sometime later on. But, you know, I think there's a lot of anticipation for this game. You know, when you take out all the realignment stuff and all, the unity between these two schools, it's a big football game. You're talking about two ranked teams, two 3-0 teams, and two teams who have aspirations this season. And, one of those teams is going to come out of this 4-0 with a ranked win. If it's Washington State, they will have two ranked wins under their belt. If it's Oregon State, they'll have their first big win of the season playing a softer non-conference schedule. So, I think both ADs and coaches and everyone has kind of said, for about 4 hours on Saturday, 3.5 hours, all that, that brotherhood, that partnership, that's off the table because these are still two programs who want to go out and win this game. And, if they want to reach their potential and get to where they want to be, they need to win this game.
Cam Ward is from here in Texas. He went to UIW, and then now he's become this huge star. What has been the biggest part of his growth where he would have times last year where he looked like this, and then a drive later he would look maybe a little bit out of his element for a little bit. But now it appears he is completely taking control, and he is one of the most lethal players in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think it's a variety of things. The first thing is Ben Arbuckle comes in as the new OC, and they immediately change a lot of Cam's mechanics. He would backpedal last year when he dropped back, go all the way back, and then run himself into trouble. His drops are crisper this year. He's taking a 3-step drop and getting the ball out. I think Arbuckle's play calling and his scheme and his designs are a lot simpler, but also a lot more effective. Eric Morris just ran a lot of bubble screens last year. There was a lot of reasons for that, but they were ineffective. Arbuckle gets the ball out quick. He uses his playmakers. He spreads the offense out, and he runs it at a high tempo. And then I think you look at the offensive line. It's a lot better than it was last year. And to me, one of the biggest things is the receivers. Waukesha's receivers were not good enough last year. They were soft on the ball. They did not block well. That has completely changed. These guys have really, really stepped up. Lincoln Victor in particular has got 342 yards. I think he's 11th in the country in yards, 6th maybe in receptions. He's a guy that has kind of helped Washington State change their offense into what they want it to look like. So I think it's a collection of things, and Ward has certainly gotten better and taken strides, but he's had a lot of help around him too that he maybe didn't have last year.
Jamie, how much has the realignment thing defined this season going in for Jake Dykert and the Cougars?
I think Jake has said quite often that they're not going to let it be a distraction. They're going to put in on the back burner. There's only so much you can do that. I know the guys are thinking about it. I mean, Dykert goes out after the Wisconsin game and says we belong in the Power 5. So it's on his mind. It's on the mind of the players. But, I think Dickert's a coach that he focuses so much on preparation and culture that these guys, when it comes time for the field, they're bought in. Their mindset is what they say, going 1-0 every week. And it's cliche. A lot of coaches use that. But I think there is a focus on the field. I'm sure there's frustration. I know that, for Dykert, for a lot of the coaches at Washington State, and for a lot of the players who will be back next year, they think they should be Power 5, and a lot of evidence suggests that they should. But I think they've done a pretty good job of tuning it all out and just going out and playing football. And, the results so far have been pretty good.
So what is the future of the Pac-2 and the Mountain West and possible relegation? What do you think that is going to come out of this, maybe radical model that they are coming up with?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, I think the dream for Wazoo and Oregon State fans is they find a Big 12 invite along the way. I don't know how plausible that is, but I think that's still the hope they're holding out for, that they get into the Big 12 and they retain that power status. Otherwise it probably looks like some kind of merge with the Mountain West, or, there is a possibility that they hang out for a couple of years and see what opens. They get a 2-year grace period that they can, if they really wanted to, operate as the Pac-2 and, go quote unquote independent until they find where they want to go next. And I think, the mindset behind that would be, with the amount of realignment we've already seen, there's another domino or 10 still to fall. How much longer are Clemson and Florida State in the ACC before someone else comes calling? How many of these schools going to new conferences, realize this was the wrong decision. Maybe we need to backtrack. So I think there's a lot of variables that, present the opportunity to perhaps do that little Pac-2 idea. But I also think there might be some desire to get stability and say, okay, we're just going to join the Mountain West, and if something else opens up, we'll see what happens.
I would just think the logistical nightmare of scheduling everything that has been taken away from you automatically would be really hard to pull that one off.
No, and I think that is definitely one of the concerns is, okay, you've got, 10 months, 12 months to the next football season. You've got to find yourself, you assume they'd play each other, and Washington State's got Portland State on the schedule, so they'll play them no matter what. Then you got to find, 9, 10 games, and a lot of teams have their schedules finalized, and that what does that turn into? That turns into Washington State either playing a very soft schedule or having to play a lot of these teams that are going into the Big 10 or Big 12 who need to schedule games as well. And I don't know if that's the best idea for Washington State. So there is certainly a logistical issue of, hey, we're going to go independent and we're going to find 9 games to schedule, 10 games to schedule. Great, you've got 8 months to do that. You're not going to get the schedule you want. It's either going to be extremely challenging or extremely easy.
Do you think fans would embrace the relegation model?
I do. I actually do. I mean, just kind of looking around Twitter and what people have said. And I think a big reason for that is the view of Washington State fans, and I think Oregon State fans as well with the last couple of years is, they wouldn't be in danger of relegation based on that model. Pat Dunn said as much yesterday that, if you went to some kind of model like this, the way Washington State has played over the last now 7 to 8 seasons, they're not in danger of that. I mean, it'd be one thing if we're talking about a perennial 4-8 program that, hey, they've had an occasional year, but, every year since 2015, save the COVID season, Washington State has made a bowl game. And not necessarily a high-end game every year. There's a lot of 7-8 win seasons, but, this is a program that has consistently beaten teams with more talent, with better recruits, with all these advantages, and that comes down to coaching, development, and so on. So I do think Coug fans would be very open to this relegation system just because, at least right now, it's hard to see a scenario in which they're really in danger of getting relegated.
Jamie, when did you feel that the Pac-12 was legitimately in trouble?
Oh, honestly, for me, it was that Friday morning when you wake up and see that Washington and Oregon are leaving. We were at fall camp. I forget what day of practice, day 2 or 3 of practice, and there had been the early morning rumors that, hey, there might be this thing that's coming together to keep it all intact. And then once Washington and Oregon left, I didn't see a future for it. I thought, it would be tough without the LA schools, but I thought it would still survive. I think when Colorado left, the reaction of a lot of people was whatever. I mean, Colorado had been in the conference for years, and as Dan Lanning said, that Oregon said, yeah, they didn't do a whole lot while they were here. Granted, that's changed a little bit this season with Deion, but, I think it was that the loss of UW and Oregon was like, this could be problematic. This conference probably can't survive with the remaining 7 teams, and then, hours later, Arizona State, and Utah all bail. So I think, for me, the death blow was UW and Oregon. I thought it could survive without the LA schools, so I haven't been thinking this all year, the last year and a half, that, it's done now, USC and UCLA are gone. But when UW and Oregon left, that's when I said, the Pac-12 is probably in some trouble here.
It is interesting to hear that from your perspective because we've been covering realignment here on our show, since Texas and OU left, and how that affected us down here in Big 12 country and all that. And then to hear it from people, especially from Oregon State and Washington State, were both really optimistic that it was going to stick together and think that there was nothing. And then just depending on where you were in the country, like, no, there's no way. It is interesting to hear that, like, inside of it, like, yes, it made a whole lot more sense for them to stay together, especially when you look at the 10 teams that left. Had they just taken the Apple deal, they're all about getting the same money without having to travel as much. So it's a little bit weird that it all wound up the way it did.
Right, and I think that's so much of the frustration is, Washington State and Oregon State are looking, first off, they're looking at a lot of the programs that are getting into these conferences, and, there's an understanding of the markets and the TV money and so on, but, I think for the Cougars, they look at Arizona and they look at Colorado again prior to this year, and, these are 2 programs that have been largely irrelevant on the national stage for a long time, and that's not to say Washington State and Oregon State have been, going to Rose Bowls every year, but these are programs that have had winning seasons for several years now. Washington State has consistently run Arizona right off the field every time they've played. So I think, and Arizona's got the basketball draw. They've got, a bigger market in Tucson. And again, I think there's a lot of understanding with that. I think the frustration comes from, a lot of these decisions, they're not made off merit. I mean, Cal and Stanford are going into a power conference. Stanford obviously has incredible women's sports, but their football team has been off the map for a few years. Their men's basketball team has been off the map. I mean, Cal, quite frankly, is not particularly good at anything or hasn't been lately. So I think there's some frustration that comes with that. And then I think, it's you look at the money. Yeah, I mean, Washington and Oregon are taking half shares. I mean, so many of these schools are taking almost no money for what exactly? To the bigger brand name. Yeah, I get that. And I saw a lot of arguments from, especially from Washington and Oregon fans, is we get these big games, Ohio State and Michigan. Okay, you also were playing Rutgers and you're playing Northwestern, and no disrespect to those programs, but it's not like you're going 12 weeks, 10 weeks of we're playing a ranked team on national TV on the grand stage every week. You're going to play a lot of 9 a.m. kickoffs on Peacock in East Piscataway that isn't going to get that much attention. So I think there were a lot of factors that kind of contributed to the frustration for Washington State and Oregon State. Largely, though, it's the fact that the merit of the two schools and their athletic program weren't getting into some of these conferences, whereas that isn't necessarily true for some of the others.
Jamie, great stuff. Enjoy the game tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be wild and fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Jamie Vinnick, CougFan.com. Jack, he's going in the rotation. That was a fun segment. He was passionate. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I mean, look, to sit there and okay, the goal of any athletic department is to be good and everything, right? And then they're doing that, and they just happen to be in Pullman compared to Tucson. That's something you can't really control. Like, you can't go back in time and be like, we should build Washington State University in a different place. You can't do that. So, yeah.
If they were in Walla Walla, come on.
Yeah. I think Drew Bledsoe from Walla Walla. I think he may be the most famous Walla Walla resident.
I have no idea who
Washington State as well.
Point is.
Yeah, anyway. All right, when we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue.
It's It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 thoughts on college football relegation. Jack, I know that you and I had a passionate discussion about this before the show.
Oh, yes.
You are very for this model because you are a fan of European soccer.
Yes, I'm sure everyone in the chat room, all the viewers want to hear more about how much I love soccer.
But you are. But I mean, the thing is that you give interesting insight into this. So as we go along, you can
because I have experience as a fan watching and having a team relegated, which I actually have experienced that as a fan of a club. So
what club?
AFC Bournemouth got relegated from the English Premier League down to the Championship, their second tier, a few years ago. Now they're back up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, and so you had to ride that whole wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years down.
Yeah. Number 5. Will the fans of those teams welcome it? You just heard from Jamie Vinnick. He thinks that they will. In that it is interesting, it's different, and in the world where you're going to get ignored by the other ones, why not do something different?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely different when you can sit there like Washington State and feel confident that you're not going to get relegated. That's different than being one of those schools. It's like, we might be a yo-yo school. We might be a school that just gets sent down and never really gets the benefit of being buoyed by better schools, because a lot of schools, Baylor included, has had periods where we have been able to benefit from being towed along by the Texases and Oklahomas financially.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. I don't think it'll hurt. If you look at the European soccer and college football are pretty similar in that if you are from Reading, England, your club is Reading. It's not like, you're not a Man U fan unless you're one of those people who's like, I like the Lakers and Cowboys and Yankees here in America. You are a fan of Reading. That's your club, just like it's your university if you are a college fan. So in that regard, I don't think you lose that much interest because I think it's kind of the same. Like it's kind of the same that way.
Well, I think the interest that you gain mainly is from the fact that there is something that should be attainable to win for you every year. Like you should feel, if the tiers are made correctly, that you have a shot to win your tier every year. College football more so than even European soccer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So
I think that just keeps fans more interested.
Yeah. All right. Number 4, does it create new interest in mid-level programs? And I mean this not from the places like Fresno State or App State, but from around the country. Do I maybe now tune into this league that I had previously kind of shoveled to the side because there's some more toppings on this pie? Like, oh, hey, that's interesting. That's not like, let's see what happens and let's see if this team moves up or down. For example, if you are Oregon State and you have a bad run of a couple years and you got to beat Fresno State I might tune into Oregon State and Fresno State a lot more if I know that there's blood on the line,
Yeah. Say your team is in the tier above those two and they're playing to get out of that tier, to get into your tier. Are you not going to pay attention because you want to see what you're going to have to play next year in one of your opponents?
It's all about creating a national draw, right? That's why everybody's gotten to move. That's why Oklahoma and Texas can call up a conference and say we're leaving. That Oregon and Washington can make a deal with the Big Ten in 48 hours. I mean, they've been vetted, but essentially in 48 hours, be like, yes, because people watch Oregon and Washington. People watch Texas and Oklahoma. It's why Florida State and Clemson believe that they might be able to do the same thing if they get their contractual issues with the ACC figured out. That is why. So if it's about creating more interest, then this leads into number 3. How much can it help with TV dollars? So can this help your TV dollars in that you've now got...
Absolutely.
You've got something very different to sell to viewers.
I'm going to be harping on this the whole time, but how many more championship games are going to be played? How many people do you think tune in to the FCS championship game? How many people do you think became North Dakota State Bison fans through their whole dominant run?
Yeah.
Like, you create more winners. People want to follow winners. People who think they have a chance to be a winner are more likely to be more invested fans. Frankly, having so many schools compete for either FCS or FBS and not much more because conference titles have been devalued, I think having more winners that truly mean something gets back to what the sport was more about when conference titles really meant a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, how many leagues would do this? Mountain West, Sun Belt, like if the Mountain West and the Pac-2 come together and decide to do this, do the other ones go, you know what? Let's do this. If we're on the outside of this, if we're on the outside, then let's just stay on the outside because they've told us. And we're not going to keep trying to fight to get in. We'll fight for our playoff spots, but this will be our hook because this is a good idea. That to me would be really interesting because, if it's just one league doing it, then yeah, that's going to be really interesting. But if you can get a bunch of leagues in on this, then to me that makes it even more fun because you might get some pretty wild scheduling on down at the end of the years. So,
yeah, I really don't know how high up relegation might get adopted, but I think if the Mountain West and Pac-12, that group is willing to forge into that new direction, I think it would be very interesting to monitor because eventually your products that aren't the SEC and the Big Ten might have to look at using it as a way to generate more excitement, more revenue, more eyeballs.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 1, the P4, not going to do it anytime soon. Because there's enough schools in both of those that'd be like, look, we're getting relegated like right there off the bat. So no, we're going to keep this. We're not going to support that. And you also have some big dogs that might be in a funk. Yeah. Like say Auburn right now. Let's be like, look, no, I'm not going to agree to this. And then be in the other tier. No. I'm not going to do that. So Auburn might have been the best example, but they're in a funk. They've not
in a funk.
They've been in a funk. So like
Florida was in a good funk.
Yeah, Florida's in one right now. Like Florida's a premier program, historically. They won 3 national titles. You kidding me? Yeah. You just tell them like, hey, sorry about your luck, I don't think they would agree to that, especially with the budgets that they've when you are trying to get more money and you kind of anticipate what the budget's going to be and it's all about the same, these smaller leagues can kind of do that. But when you're expecting $50 million or more a year, and then you plan that out for 5 years, and then you're like, well, the football team, so it's not just football too. They're going to do it in all sports. So like if our teams all kind of suck in the same year, well, they would have to cut $20 million out of the budget. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Like they're just not.
They have thought of that over in Europe. They have parachute payments. It's not a great system, but it eases that burden of the fall. Either way, there are problems there still.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it'll be interesting. And look, I do think that when they should do it and completely embrace it is if there's ever a super league of 32 teams, then you know what? If you're not going to be in the super league, do this.
Exactly.
Just do this. And
in fact, I think that would do so much to save those teams, to save the eyeballs that would be going to those teams. I think it would.
You might be able to kind of take a chunk out of the Super League too.
I think it would be just as entertaining to watch as the Super League.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Completely different reasons.
Yeah, because the Super League is not going to agree to that at all. If you're one of the 32, you're not going to be like, well, I'm going to agree to a system where I could fall out of this. Like,
I would not be surprised if teams that were having a bad year in the Super League, their fans are just like, yeah, I'm going to go pick someone in this other, whatever you want to call it, in the relegation league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they'd rather root for a winner. People want to root for winners, man. I'm going to just keep that's my opinion. I'm going to keep rolling with that.
Absolutely. So thank you to everybody who watched live today on the chat. Thank you to everybody who will watch later. Second 365 tonight on the CW at 10:30. Tomorrow we are on the CW at 4 o'clock for Texas and Baylor pregame. And please, hey, I'm just going to throw this out here right now. If you don't have plans for next Saturday, head on over right down the street from us, Brotherwell Brewing, Saturday, September 30th. They're going to have their Oktoberfest. I know it's not technically October, but it might as well be October over there. And Brotherwell's
any excuse to drink some beer.
Oh, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic beer. They're going to have a special fest beer that they brew there on site, and they're going to have a live band They're going to have lots of things going on. Hold on. I'm pulling up all the great things they're going to have going on. Live local music from Zamora County Line, a special brewed fest beer made in-house, grilled brats and freshly baked pretzels, cornhole, axe throwing, and the party closes with a traditional Stein holding competition. Mark your calendar now. It's Saturday, September 30th, 5 to 9 p.m., and their tap room's open every day with weekly events and specials. Enjoy their large outdoor beer garden, and don't forget to look at Brotherwell Six-Pack at Central Texas HEB's. One of my favorites here in town, and again, they're right down. They're on Bridge Street, right down here from us. A maybe 90-second walk from our studio. 2 minutes? Now, it depends on what you're doing. It's a 60-second jog. Like, if you book it, you can be there in a minute. But you're probably not going to do that because you're going to want beer pretty quick. And I don't know if you want to sprint and drink beer. Not the best idea. I've done it before. It's never ended well.
Paul, let's do a beer mile someday. You know what a beer mile is,
Yes, I
right?
do. I do. I absolutely do. We'll do that. We'll do that and have somebody videotape. We'll put on GoPros like that and do that. This is 365 Sports. Have a great football weekend, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock.